At the beginning of the manhwa, we see a dungeon in which there is a lot of fear, uncertainty, darkness, and death. Only a demon who owns a dungeon is worthy of the title of Demon Lord. You should also not forget about preparing the army of evil. This is also very important. We learn that the Demon Lord gets endless wealth. Our main character's name is Sherlock. He was born a high-level demon but grew up in the slums. This loser was laughed at from childhood. He was beaten and his peers constantly loved to humiliate him. And this makes him strive even more for wealth and the title of Demon Lord. It doesn't matter where this guy was born and raised, he will still become the greatest demon. Sherlock, using his demonic power, is going to put a personal seal. Next, we see how the main character still puts that same stamp. Sherlock is going to talk about the reason why he decided to buy this dungeon. It wasn't that the succubus demon from the sales department was flirting with him. You can see the memories of this fool, where that same demon talks about acquiring wealth in the near future. The reason that the guy decided to buy this dungeon is also not because there are a lot of diamonds there. Also, the reason is not that there is only a day's journey from the surface. The reason he decided to buy this godforsaken place was not because he decided to test himself. He did this because this is the only dungeon that Sherlock could afford, because most of the money goes to skins in Valorant. Sherlock understands that first he needs to launch the core to give a start to his great project. After some of his actions, the guy now watches the flash of light with a smile on his face. On the blue stone, you can now see the face of some demon. He now thinks that Sherlock is his master. After what he saw, the main character was perplexed because he did not understand why this was not in the book. He thinks that the core is damaged, and the animal, seeing Sherlock's brilliant mind, is already beginning to consider him an aborigine. Of course, the young guy didn't like the fact that this core called him an aborigine. He considers it nonsense. The guy still thinks the kernel is damaged because it was cheap, which is why it looks so bad. It turns out that the core learned these expressions in another world, so it is not corrupted at all and everything is fine. This animal asks him not to come back, because he won't be bought for a long time. He even escaped from the core. The main character noticed how the animal called him the greatest demon lord. And then he realizes that this core is actually intelligent, although before that he considered it bad. The guy has never seen a talking core before. He thinks that it is some kind of rare species. He understands that the core can think and speak, but this does not suit his plans. We also learn that over 100 years, 100 rooms with dungeon monsters were dug up. Sherlock realizes that he needs to build 10 kitchens, 10 interrogation rooms, 10 torture rooms, and 2 training rooms. And he also wants a labyrinth, a luxurious bedroom, as well as a rich treasury. After these words, they simply look at each other with a smile, as if they understand each other. The animal understood the guy. They shook hands, and the animal said that it would help the guy become a demon lord. Dungeons of different levels can summon different monsters, and you can improve dungeons using cores. We learn that if you feed your dungeon core to other cores, its class will increase. At the moment, Sherlock's dungeon is the lowest level, so he can only summon goblins. Sherlock understands that the time has come to take action, but the animal apparently is not ready yet. He says that according to the rules, if you hire goblins, Sherlock must pay each of them 5 magic stones. But you can also try to sign a contract with goblins from another world. Then there will be no need to pay them a salary. Moreover, they themselves will pay the main character. These words surprise Sherlock. He cannot understand why these goblins should pay him. It turns out that in another world they are called donation pigs, and this already says something. Sherlock realizes in tears that he doesn't yet have enough stones to pay the goblins for their work. However, given the geographical location of the dungeon, the likelihood of finding magic stones is too low. Sherlock decides to ask the core how he can even summon goblins from another world. He learns that first he needs to suppress the magical power, then create a server, and it will take a long time. The core decides to clarify whether his master is ready for this, and Sherlock in turn thinks about it. This self-confident guy believes that the animal has no reason to doubt him, because he is a demon lord. Then Sherlock decides to show his abilities in practice. He started releasing magic. After this, the kernel received some data, after which it began to analyze this data. The process was successful, and within a week Sherlock is going to start interacting with the server. The core tells its master that the portal has been built, and he needs to take a look at it. The core says that these goblins like to call themselves something, and then create groups. They also trade things with each other and fight for resources. The core hopes that the master is ready for this. Sherlock is only interested in whether these goblins can be controlled in order to be used for their own purposes. It turns out that this cannot be done due to cultural differences, but it can be done through the official website. The words of this cute core put Sherlock into a stupor. He doesn't understand what website we're talking about. The core says that this can be considered a place where 2 worlds converge, a simple enough explanation. The guy thinks that these goblins from another world have strange hobbies, but it's good that he doesn't have to pay them. Sherlock's duties include monitoring and protecting this site, as well as recruiting workers through it. To begin with, the main character is going to give some nice name for his dungeon. Some guy sees that the game dungeon Eternal Kingdom is open for pre-order. He wants to play. We see Sherlock, who is sitting right now looking at the computer, apparently studying his website. It turned out that the guy had his first testers. These requests came from testers. He would never have thought that free labor would line up to get into the dungeon. The guy finds out that in another world there are only 80 million players, but we must take into account the scale of their kingdom. The core tells Sherlock that it can only accommodate 100 players, so a selection must be made. The main character, not wanting to waste time, decides to start the selection right now. After some time, Sherlock realizes that he has successfully carried out this selection. He is pleased with himself and happily realizes that it is time to publish something on the site. The announcement indicates that a set of testers has been opened for the game Eternal Kingdom. In the next chapter, Sherlock is seen going to his core to say something. He says there's one important thing they need to do before they welcome the first players. The main character decided to invest a lot of money to buy pickaxes, as if he were all about to go play Minecraft. Events move to the city of Lindong. We hear from someone that he drank too much, and his wife beat him for it. These were goblins. One of them is missing an ear because of his wife. It turns out that it is not in vain that he says that hitting means loving. Apparently, Sherlock received the seal from one of the goblins, after which he took his sheet and left. We see a market where various meats, precious stones, and other junk are sold. The proud protagonist, looking around this place, realizes that they are selling all sorts of unnecessary rubbish. The core decides to find out how many magic stones its owner took. It turned out that only 1,000. The core was very surprised by this answer. It now believes that this guy is a real simpleton. We see how after some time, these two reach the entrance to a building. They go inside and find out that each guest can buy powder for the draw or ashes of sorrow. Sherlock takes the cup of drink with an important look and tells the piece of stone that he came here for 3 reasons. First, he wants to buy an iron pickaxe, also a cheap iron pickaxe and 100 iron pickaxes. The satisfied stone man says that it will cost 1,000 stones and delivery is free. Sherlock is shocked at this price. He understands that after payment, he will not be able to feed his goblins. The stone understands that this guy is a demon lord and is now setting up his dungeon. In this case, this sales genius has a special offer that he provides to the guy. He sees that for 800 stones he can get a whole forge and 20 pickaxes as a gift, so this is profitable. Sherlock decides to get the opinion of his core from the opinion of the Brews. The core is now going to give an answer. Brew likes everything, because they will even be able to forge their own pickaxes and make various things that can be sold. Sherlock is surprised that he shouldn't give gamers equipment for free, because it can be sold. Brew says that they can buy everything for money. If they don't have it, then they can earn money. These explanations were already enough for the main character. Now he put the bag of coins on the table. He pleased the seller that he agreed to pay for the forge, and the seller thanked him for the purchase. We see events in the underground city. After the purchase, Sherlock realizes that he can feed the goblins. But then the Brew asked to wait for Sherlock, because first he needed to post quests for beginners. Brew says that quest is a term from another world. Quests are needed so that they can understand the game. They receive different rewards for quests. Sherlock did not expect that everything would be so difficult. The guy might go bankrupt if he pays players, but you can use gold coins. Sherlock realizes that he actually has a lot of them, but he still knows something about them. We learn that 1,000 copper coins is 1 silver coin, 1,000 silver coins is 1 gold coin. But in general, gold coins are a generally accepted monetary unit in the world on the surface. However, in the underworld, they still prefer to use magic stones. Still, no one in the dungeon needs gold coins, but goblins from another world will want them. Sherlock learns from his bro buddy that they really love them very much. They will be able to fool them by making gold coins a common currency and passing them off as quests. While the two were talking about something of their own, they suddenly heard someone's voice behind them. This is a certain black iron dwarf, a master blacksmith. He believes that the guy is too young to be a ruler. He says that he will be their new blacksmith named Shinba. He provided the guy with his contract. Sherlock, reading the contract, greets Sinba and says that he is the first employee of this dungeon. Sherlock shows him his workplace, where Sinba will now have to prepare food. Of course, Sinba cannot refuse. He bowed to his master and said that he would do everything. Sherlock sees that work has begun, and the Brew reminds the guy that the server will need to be launched soon. The main character immediately understood everything. Without any words, he begins to approach an important place. After which some process began. Apparently this guy starts launching the server. While the process is ongoing, the main character immediately realizes that the time has come for the call. He asks the goblins to come to serve the great demon ruler faithfully. However, Sherlock remained dissatisfied. Apparently something was wrong with his servants because no one had appeared yet. The guy learned from the Bruce that they create their own character. They pay attention to appearance, clothes, etc. While the main character was listening to his friend, he suddenly drew attention to someone's surprised voice. It turned out that this is the first player. He approached Sherlock and considers him a very tall NPC. The Goblin is surprised at how technology has developed because he can play online games in virtual reality. Having pinched himself, he felt pain. He begins to wonder if it is possible to somehow regulate it. Sherlock asks this goblin to swear allegiance to him, and then he will receive his mercy. A goblin named Tough Meichuan swears allegiance to the great demon Lord Sherlock. He realizes that this NPC is too strong, which is cool, so he wants to talk about it on the forum. Next, the main character begins to look at the nickname of this goblin, and it seems strange to him. After some time, to Sherlock's surprise, he notices how new players are joining. He sees a bunch of strange goblins who are already eager to learn a new game. Someone understands that everything here is controlled by the nervous system, and someone wants to undergo training. But then another goblin pays attention to the main character. He also thinks that he is an NPC. The guy tells them that he is a noble master, and from that day on they became residents of his dungeon. They must turn this eternal kingdom into a very luxurious place, and now they must receive tasks. In the next chapter, the goblins are already looking at their quests. They see different tasks and rewards for them. One of the goblins believes that he has already taken a bunch of diamonds to the forge, but also wants to mine minerals. Joyful players understand that ore can be smelted into metal, and then made into pickaxes and weapons. Sherlock understands that a first-class dungeon cannot do without the armed forces. After all sorts of underground creatures and even high-level monsters roam in these places. So Sherlock must arm his servants well and organize a defense system. Cool Meichuan meanwhile approaches Sherlock and tells him that he wants the initial reward. Sherlock doesn't understand what he's talking about, and the goblin thought that the reward should be taken from this NPC. A goblin named Cruel Brother approaches Sherlock and asks for a high speed of ore mining. The main character is surprised by the courage of these goblins because they are not afraid of such a high-ranking demon. At that moment, something unexpected happened. Sherlock heard a strong roar behind him. Everyone turned around and saw how Simba hit the goblin on the head. Sherlock realizes that they are not even afraid of death. Another strange goblin approaches the guy and says that he has completed the task. Their hard work is evident. As a reward for completing the task, Sherlock handed this goblin gold coins, making him happy. The guy is surprised by their enthusiasm and efficiency. He also doesn't need to spend money, and there are almost no disadvantages. While the main character was dealing with these goblins, a cannonball flies up to him and is about to say something. Brew says he needs to improve the game content and interface of their official website. The guy doesn't understand what's new in this. He finds out that goblins from another world consider the dungeon a game. Doing work is their way of having fun, so the guy needs to add new mechanics. Sherlock believes that they need to give them more space to play, and also learns that they love dangerous entertainment. In fact, players love exploring the world and tough boss battles. Nothing will stop them. Gamers especially love to discover new locations. If there is a strong opponent, they will fight. It doesn't even matter what kind of wounds they have because the main thing is to defeat the enemy. However, for victory, Sherlock should give them generous rewards. It is advisable, of course, to give them equipment. Sherlock realized that he needed to make a location with treasures, and preferably with a high-level boss. The guy understands that at the same time, he will be able to get acquainted with these places, and this makes him happy. After some time, Sherlock found a suitable place for entertainment, namely a nest of spiders. He understands that there is a stable source of monsters, large spiders. However, only one spider queen is needed. Then he can constantly produce hundreds of spiders. These monsters also love to dig holes, and their nest resembles a labyrinth. This is an ideal place for battle. We see Sherlock standing among the dead spiders and continuing to think about his plans. He learns from the bro that one of the players has died. The guy is interested. He thinks that someone from outside killed him. It turned out that this fool had simply injected himself with steroids and crashed into a wall at high speed. Sherlock doesn't understand why this happened, and Brew thinks that it was interesting for him to be reborn in this world. Later, a bunch of goblins notice that their master has returned, and they realize that their death bothers him. The guy understands that if he wants to resurrect the goblin, he needs to go to the afterlife. It turned out that his soul fell into the core, since he came from a completely different world. Brew used some tricks when he called them here so their souls don't go to the afterlife. He also says that in another world, this operation is called character recreation. Sherlock doesn't understand where this function comes from, and Brew says that it's his unique function. After some time, having learned about everything, the main character begins to resurrect the cool Meichuan. The core guy continues this process and hopes that everything will work out for them. Further, you can see how the goblins were surprised that the cool Meichuan was resurrected. They did not expect this. Unfortunately, it turned out that in this herd of stupid goblins, everyone decided to try rebirth on themselves. One of the goblins thought he was in 1943 and jumped straight into the burning furnace, allegedly dying in battle. Meanwhile, the cool Meichuan is glad that he is alive and really wants his money back. Suddenly, another goblin wanted to experience the power of rebirth. Other goblins wondered what would happen. We see that the main character is very dissatisfied with the actions of these stupid goblins. He wants to tell them something. He tells them to stop this mess and start doing their job. Then we learn that Sherlock has made an illustrated guide to monsters and a new location. A big announcement has been released which says that a new location will appear in the game, the lair of spiders. Next, they added the killer flower, which is actually not even a plant, it's an animal. They also added the queen of spiders. She is usually alone in a whole flock of spiders, you just can't see her. The hair of the spider queen is a valuable magical material that Sherlock is interested in. Although the guy is interested in the queen's hair, he does not understand why it receives his favor. Brew gave him his answer to this question, and Sherlock was pleased. His reputation is an expression of their love for him. Looking at his computer once again, the main character sees that gamers love to leave reviews. He wonders what players from another world think about him. It seems to him that they are saying bad things about him. By clicking his mouse, the guy sees text that says that the game tester has revealed the strategy for completing the game. In the next chapter, we see Sherlock sitting and reading one of the positive reviews of the game. The goblin is surprised because players can even adjust the pain parameter. The coolest one set the indicator to 100%. He says that the dungeon is called the Eternal Kingdom, but you can only choose the goblin race. The player also already realized that there are only 2 NPCs in the game, the blacksmith Shinba and one more. The blacksmith is a dark iron dwarf, so it's better not to touch him, otherwise you might get hit in the face. There is also hunger in the game, so you need to use currency to buy food in the store. He says players can earn currency for completing quests, mostly copper coins. The goblin starts talking about the second NPC. This is our beloved Lord Sherlock, the demonic lord of the dungeon. Also, the game is still only in beta, so only stable NPCs can interact with players. This game also has no blood, blue scales, attributes, and other interface elements, complete hardcore. There are no specialties in this game. Even if the player digs all day, nothing will change. Only when there is no longer a height ceiling can a player truly develop. This game has good intelligence, for example. If you need ore, the system will take mining tasks as a priority. There is also something interesting here. When the player moves an item in the game, its position changes and does not return. If you carry bricks all day, you can change the environment in the game. This is necessary so that players do not break the rules. Perhaps this is due to the fact that goblins are a low-level race, and they are afraid of everyone who is higher level. There are also penalties for dying here. The pain here is real, so he doesn't recommend crashing into the wall like he did. Upon death, players will be thrown back to the starting screen and will be resurrected after their body is restored. He just returned after restoring his account. There can't be multiple accounts in this game either. We also learn that a certain Lao Sia can revive the player, but you still need to take care of your life. After watching it, Sherlock believes that goblins like to work without salary. The guy finds all this very strange, but he still wants to see what else they say. Sherlock reads comments from different people with high intelligence. They all have different opinions. The guy thinks that these players are really strange, but he forgot about it, because he needs to sort things out. After some time, the guy goes out into the hall and sees sleeping guys in front of him, whom he wants to wake up. Hearing a familiar voice, the tired blacksmith immediately woke up, trying to figure out who was there. Seeing the boss, he got to his feet. Sherlock tells him that he wants the goblins to clear out the spider's lair. Sinby thinks that this is a killing mission for the goblins, but she learns from the guy that they themselves want this. The man does not deny this, but some goblins behave extremely outrageously. We learn that the blacksmith in the dungeon can extract metals from large diamonds to create items. The blacksmith says that thanks to the goblins, the supply of diamonds allows them to create a lot of equipment. Sinba advises the guy to hire an additional blacksmith. He just has a younger brother who is good. Moreover, Sherlock has no money at all to hire more staff. The blacksmith says that the goblins recently asked him to get equipment and even wrote a scroll. The main character has opened this large scroll and believes that their request should be rejected. Sherlock says he will give out the equipment, but he needs to set a price for sale. The guy says that he uses coins as a reward. They may run out and need to be restored. After some time, Zinba made it clear to the guy that his blade was already ready, so he should take a look. Brew advises giving an explanation of the task to the players. The Colonel itself wrote this explanation a long time ago. It talks about the Yonyx Vajra blade. There is information about this weapon as well as characteristics. Next comes the Vajra armor. This is the usual white equipment. It is forged by the blacksmith Simba. Sherlock begins to praise Blue for her work. He asks if there is a reward system for the level of prestige. It turns out that there is. The higher this level, the better the equipment and the higher the status among the goblins. Sherlock is pleased with this, especially since the goblins should also like it, so everything is great. Next we see a bunch of goblins starting to wake up, one of them saying good morning to the others. The goblins notice something, namely a new weapon. They already assume that Simba is forging equipment. The goblins are asked to look at the start of a new mission that will allow them to advance. The main character asks them to pay attention to him and says that they should clean out the spider's lair. In the next chapter, you can see how the goblins rejoice. They completed the task for the Endless Kingdom and the Lord. One of the goblins thinks this task is a gift for them, so he doesn't want any equipment. The blacksmith announced an update to his store. For only 600 copper coins, you can purchase rare equipment. The guy now has 100 copper coins in his hands, so he needs to work harder. Suddenly, someone announces that they are selling copper coins for 10 yuan and only accept 550. The goblins liked it and started buying them. The bald man received 523 copper coins. Sherlock sees that the goblins are using real-world currency to exchange for copper coins. Next, the main character watches contentedly as the goblins finally put on their equipment. Blue wonders if the guy wants to go with them, but it turns out he doesn't want to, because things might not go according to plan. This guy has his own ways of watching them, and now he is going to show them. After Sherlock touches the Blue, something begins to happen to him. Apparently something is about to happen. He now watches as the goblins entered the spider's lair. He wants them to show their power. The goblin girl learns that the monster may suddenly attack them, and the goblin behind him confirms this. After some time, a huge spider appeared on their way, which scared them a little. The spider decides to carry out his attack, but the goblin Artut stands and looks the monster straight in the eyes. A moment later, we see how the spider overtook Arthur and struck him, but the goblin hit him with a sword. We see how after the spider's attack, the poor goblin flew several meters back. They are worried about him. He is about to land on the ground, and the goblin girl is already approaching him to inspect him. She asks if he's okay, and this green Sigma says that the pain was just terrible. He remembers that the guide said that underground spiders live in flocks. He understands that an escaped spider is dangerous. A player named Kuruko Umakawa begins to look around and convinces him that his friend was right. It turned out that a flock of spiders had made themselves known. They already pose a great danger. The group of players continues to look around. One of them decides to wonder if it's too late to escape. After some time, we see how these spiders have already finished off this group and are about to eat them. Our heroes see that this is the year for them, after all. They are here for the first time, so not a bad result. Then all the goblins watch in surprise as someone begins to appear near them. These are the same warriors who have been reborn, and they are asking how difficult it is to fight monsters. After the first appearance, more and more of his friends begin to appear behind the goblin. The rest of the players don't understand how they could even lose, since this is only the first combat zone. It turns out that the red-haired one is just glad that the monsters here are too real. It's very exciting. Sherlock sees that despite the failure of the first expedition, the players still liked it. The guy says that thanks to Brew, goblins can calmly revive without the underworld. Sherlock decides to go to the spider's lair on his own to examine it, and asks Brew to look after the dungeon. The guy, looking around, sees that the dungeon has just opened, and all kinds of loot are already lying around here. He took out his knife and decided to rip open the belly of one of the dead spiders, apparently seeing more loot. The guy saw vibrations of demonic power inside the spider. He wondered what kind of object it was. He decided to take this thing for himself in case it was valuable, then he could make money. The main character returned to the goblins. They look in surprise at the spider he dragged. They recognize this spider as the one who beat their friend Arthur, because even the wound on his head is similar. The guy tells them that they called Simba and cut down this underground spider. It already seems to the goblins that this is a secret quest, and a moment later Simba himself appears. He feels something in the stomach of this spider. He asks to help him, but at the same time try not to break the object. The blacksmith chops this spider, all the mucus falls on the goblins, someone is even glad that they can look at it. Having cut the spider, the man asks someone to go inside and take a good look at everything there. Of course, the goblin listened to him, because he didn't want to get hit on his head with a hammer, and it turned out that he found something there. Having grabbed the object, he came out of the belly of the beast to show everyone around some kind of large green ball. In the next chapter, we learn that Sherlock's guesses turned out to be correct. This thing can really be sold. He asks his green servants to start getting ready, because they are now going to Winterfell. The other goblins consider their friends lucky, because they received many different quests. Sherlock takes out some strange scroll, after which he asks the goblins to stand closer to him. They listened and approached the guy, after which something began to happen around them. The players are surprised by the strength of their overlord. Some think it's from a skill book. Watching this performance, one of the players wondered whether it was possible to buy something like this for a donation. They are still surprised by this sight and want to take more photos, because it is all unusual. To begin with, some handsome toothy guy asks the goblins to fill out a form because teleportations follow them too. After all this tedious action, Sherlock makes it clear to the goblins that it is time for them to move on. They walk through the market where they sell all sorts of things. The goblin on the left, seeing the city, feels that his block will be at the top. And then the goblins want to turn to their master with a question. He, in turn, tells them that they are in place. Some kind of door is visible in front of them, and there is an inscription on top they are going to enter there. Inside, this group sees game props. The goblins wonder how much it all costs. The seller says that this magician's stick is from the surface, for which people fought, yet his product is original. The seller is going to sell this stick for only $9.98, and is even going to give him a sorcerer. One of the goblins already wants to donate to let off his steam, and the other sees that he is too rich. Having noticed the behavior of these goblins, the seller believes that they have already lost all their minds. However, in response, the main character decided not to say anything special. He just put a green ball on the table. The goblin is dissatisfied that he is not told how to donate, and the other asks not to interrupt the dialogue between the two NPCs. Having opened the book, the seller read something from it, after which he decided to lick this unusual object. The main character is already thinking about telling him that this ball was taken from the insides of a spider. After licking this tasty ball thoroughly, the elderly seller realizes that this is the key to the ancient ruins. One of the players grabbed this ball and thinks that it is needed to start the quest. Despite the fact that this is a key, the seller is only willing to give 5,000 stones for it, although the usual price is 50,000. Green understands that they want to find this place themselves, so he offers them 6,000 stones and a friendly gift. Sherlock was satisfied with this offer, but it depends on the gift itself and its value. After the dialogue, the seller tells the guy that he is going to bring him a gift. It turned out that this is a fairy from the Tree of Life. She knows alchemy, herbalism, can brew potions, and also distill moonshine. They find out that she is quite stubborn. She has not spoken for a very long time and even recently stopped eating. The guy liked her skills, after which he decided to give the ball to the seller. The green one had already transferred the stones to his account. Sherlock is glad that he was finally able to earn Simba's salary. He did not think that he would be able to find such a treasure. The guy asks the goblins to wait here, and they are already very interested in how this task will end. Events are transferred to a florist's store, a secret garden. Sherlock sees a cozy atmosphere here. The horned, handsome man welcomes the guy into his store. He talks about his new deliveries. Sherlock says that he wants to build a flower garden in the dungeon, and also buy herbs. The bull believes that the hellish soil will divide the efforts into two, but good flowers need good soil. He found out that the guy needs seeds for the fairy, so he says that the price of the flower garden and herbs will be 100,000 magic stones. The bull was pleased with the guy's agreement. He is also going to give Sherlock a pair of stone golems. The goblin, once again seeing something unusual, wants to donate to it. After some time, the main character and the goblins return to the dungeon. Players see a lot of golems all around. Some people can't even believe that they will create conveniences now. Suddenly, the red-haired goblin begins to scream. He saw that their fairy was now lying unconscious. Goblins surrounded this fairy. Someone hopes that they will be able to choose this race later. Suddenly, the fairy slowly begins to come to her senses. She hears unusual voices all around. The goblins discuss how they will look after her, and they also share advice with each other. The fairy wakes up and thinks that she has gone to heaven, but finds out that this is a den of monsters. The goblins decide to offer her water and fresh flowers, and also think that she has tasks for them. The players see no effect, but later one of them sees Sherlock and waits for a cutscene. Sherlock, with a very menacing look, begins to approach the fairy. He scared her, and she asks him not to approach. He decided to introduce himself to her, and told her his name and who he actually was in this dungeon. He tells her that if she helps him earn 50,000 magic stones, he will let her go. In response, the fairy says that she will never help the demon, because he takes souls from people who deal with him. The main character just begins to smile, looking at her and telling her to let him know when she changes her mind. The goblins are afraid that now they will not be able to grow herbs, because the fairy apparently does not want to help them. Brew asks the guy why he didn't continue to persuade her, but simply decided to torture her until he agreed. Sherlock tells the core that modern demons do not torture people, but play with their hearts. Apparently the bro understood everything. The guy sees that the progress is pretty good. He still needs to tell Simba to make more tools. However, tools require wood, and during their extraction you can attract the attention of people. Their dungeon lacks an army. Sherlock tells his friend that he is right, so they should make tools without handles, a brilliant solution indeed. Then he tells Brew to go home, and he himself will see what the heavenly people are discussing on the forum. Just a moment later, the main character sat down at his cool computer to start reading reviews about the game. He sees some post. In it, someone suggests that in the Dungeon of the Endless Kingdom, there will soon be a Winterfell location. Sherlock turns on the video and sees the goblin Meichuan Kuko, who is right now greeting his viewers. Today, he and the other 5 goblins were going through a new map. Not even 10 minutes had passed before they had already been defeated. But they did not die in vain. Because Arthur killed the spider, they received a magic item from the spider and completed the quest. As part of the quest, they ended up in the Winterfell location. The city is incredibly luxurious, and there are cool NPCs there. Everyone there has their own will. It's hard to imagine how complexly it was all programmed. However, the player took many screenshots, which he is now going to share with everyone. Sherlock considers this goblin to be picky, but this is the main function of the players. They like to share experiences. Goblin also thinks the game mechanics are very complex. When the game is available to everyone, it will be very cool. He can say from himself that people should look after themselves. He now understands why the authorities do not digitize this. Because in the game, factors are determined by the players, for example, no matter how strong the goblins or anyone else are. If you want to become stronger, then you should work with your hands, and in addition to Simba, a fairy appeared in the dungeon. Players can also equip weapons and armor. Some types have high characteristics. However, all this can be quite expensive. 2 items will cost 600 coins. Rich children are already wanting to donate. A reputation function has also been released. In addition to money, you can also receive reputation for completing quests. The higher it is, the better. Now everyone is working hard to earn money for the equipment they need to fight the spiders. The 2 are wondering when the goblins are planning their attack, but it seems like they're moving out soon. Then they heard someone's voice. Someone, apparently, was going to start fighting for some mayor. It turned out that these were goblins who had apparently already collected their equipment and were about to jump into the portal. They are determined and, raising their blades, are about to begin the battle for their favorite dungeon. In the next chapter, Sherlock drew attention to the power of these players. They simply amaze him. The guy is at a loss as to how they even like such destruction. Blue says that they don't like this in life, but it's a game. Sherlock considers their fights primitive, thinking that there are no wars in their world, but Blue says that there are, but there are other dangers in the dungeon. Unfortunately, if players continue to be beaten, they may become angry and quit the game. Blue tries to explain the whole problem to the guy. He says that when they are no longer having fun, they can quit the game. Sherlock sees sense in this. Blue tells him that it is time to take action to guarantee their labor. Blue suggests giving the goblins the means to become stronger, so that constant death will only motivate them. The guy likes this idea, because if they leave the game, he won't have enough materials for their weapons. Sherlock goes to Winterfell in search of a trainer, and asks Blue to calm the goblins after their return. Blue is already thinking about how to calm them down and understands that she can offer them a reward, so everything is fine. We see an inscription that says that warriors who took part in the development of lands will receive 10 copper coins. Meanwhile, Sherlock has reached one woman and, placing his hand on the table, asks for a combat skills trainer. The demon succubus tells him that they have not seen each other for a long time and asks how much he is willing to pay. He is ready to give 20 stones. The girl got a little worried. It seems to her that the demands are too high, but Sherlock wants it. She says that for 20 magic stones, she cannot find the right candidate for him. She wants more. He reminds that he still needs a trainer for goblins, but the girl does not accept applications for work below 200 stones. Sherlock reminds the succubus about their relationship and hopes that they will have a good influence on her final decision. When they first met, she sold him a half-rotten dungeon. He doesn't think it's too much to ask. The girl looked around and thought a little about the words of the main character. She was already about to give a final answer. She whispers to him that she will keep him in mind, and when she finds the right candidate, she will send him to the guy. The guy is happy with this girl's decision. He thanks her and says that he needs a coach as soon as possible. After a while, we see Blue telling the guy that he thought of something while looking at this girl and is going to tell him. It seems to him that the guy needs an assistant to save him time. Sherlock understands that an assistant is expensive. Blue suggests using the services of full-time workers, but Sherlock will think about that later. After some time, the main character teleported straight to his lair. The goblins had already noticed him. The goblins immediately surrounded Sherlock. They asked a lot of questions. They were very interested in when they would be able to learn the skills. The guy understands that Blue told them about the coach, but he says that he just sent an ad and they misunderstood him. Sherlock tells them that he hired a trainer to improve their skills. He hopes they will be good soldiers. This made these goblins very happy. They wondered whether it would be possible to donate and how much it would cost. We see the main character standing in the lobby and realizing that the time has come for the official announcement. But then suddenly something strange caught his attention. He noticed a red object behind him. It turned out that this ball decided to give Sherlock a letter that someone had sent personally for him. Having noticed this letter, the guy realizes that it is still addressed to him and decides to read it. Having opened the letter, he realizes that it came from the seller Evelyn. She has finally found the trainer and asks for a tax of 5 stones. Blue already considers this girl very meticulous and offers to put her in the position of assistant. He also says that a request for teleportation has come, perhaps from Evelyn. The main character has given his permission to accept teleportation, after which he can only wait for it to appear here. Of course, the goblins all around turn their attention to this teleportation. They don't understand where he came from. They are already starting to make their guesses. Someone thinks that it is a trainer, and another goblin offers to look. A moment later, they are already watching someone's leg crawl out of the portal. They are wondering who it is. It turns out to be some kind of goblin. He sees a bunch of other goblins and assumes that the mayor of this place is clearly rich. One of the goblins recognized the guy as the guard at the gates of Winterfell because he had recently been there on a quest. In the next chapter, players are very happy. They think that the Winterfell location will be available very soon. After a while, Sherlock himself came to this noise. He sees a troll he knows in front of him and wants to talk. The troll knelt down and spoke about himself. He is the captain of the Pestilence, the elite guard of Winterfell, and will be their trainer. However, apparently this character did not at all expect to see goblins as his students. Baldy doesn't understand if he's talking to them now, but it seems they already understand that this is the same coach from the advertisements. After that, they begin to rejoice because now they can definitely start learning the skills and want to start. Peering at the new guy, Sherlock sees familiar faces and realizes that he is the guard at the teleport in the lobby. He assures the guy that he can be trusted because he was a strong warrior before he got married. However, apparently this guy has a little difficulty remembering all this. For him, these memories are too bitter. Sherlock tells him that all he has to do is train his goblins to fight spiders. If he can, he's hired. In response, the troll bowed to the demon lord and lets him know that he is going to serve him faithfully. A window appeared in front of the troll, in which he had a choice. Now he must confirm his words. The troll even decided not to waste time on useless thinking. He simply confirmed it with a wide smile. The agreement was concluded. He wonders what he needs to do next, and Sherlock just says to follow him. The guy says that his dungeon is quite unusual. He cannot spend much time on training. They will have 2 free hours of training per day, and must pay extra for the rest of the time. Payment should not be made with magic stones, but with gold. He should not accept other currencies. In addition to time to sleep, the troll will have half an hour of rest after a 2-hour training session. After voicing various rules, the main character decides to check with his friend whether he agrees to such conditions. He agrees, but does not understand why it is necessary to take their useless currency, and goblins also make bad warriors. The troll is already experienced. He understands perfectly well that in battle they can dodge and dodge. If you have to pay to train, it may start to take away their desire to train. He says that this is the system of their underground city. When he starts training them, he will understand. The guy hands the employee his badge and reminds him that the first day is a free working day. The events take place in the training ground. The troll has gathered a bunch of goblins and is about to start training. It seems to Nosy that he should choose someone as an example, so that others can understand it more clearly. He introduces himself to them and says that they will have 2 hours of free training a day, then they need to pay. The joyful goblins are not deterred at all. They want to learn different skills to kick spiders' butts. We can watch as the players begin their training. They fight with each other under supervision. Sherlock notices how one of the goblins didn't go to training. He thought they all liked to fight. Blue believes that this player likes a quiet life and likes to travel. Apparently, he is a pacifist. However, the main character still cannot understand where he can actually travel. He also understands that such players can learn herbalism from a fairy, so they are useful. Sherlock is very happy, because their dungeon is finally developing in the right direction as he intended. The tough guy is well aware that every second he is getting closer and closer to his goal. In the next chapter, we see how Moros is about to start training, but before that he wants to test the strength of the goblins. He wants to find someone willing from the crowd to come out with him and fight, but apparently no one wants this yet. And then suddenly the red-haired goblin begins to emerge from the crowd, making his desire clear, thereby surprising everyone. This guy is very determined. He says he wants to try to fight his trainer. Moros is pleased with this and asks him to get up. Apparently now they will have a hot battle, just like in Mortal Kombat. However, not even a second has passed, and the red-haired one is already lying under his feet in a strong drizzle. He should still train. The goblins are shocked by this scene. They see that this NPC is very strong, After this, more and more goblins want to test themselves. And then many goblins attack their trainer at once, and he, in turn, remains calm and just stands still. Even though this troll was outnumbered, he dealt with them and sees that they are his worst students. They say that they are still just beginners and have not fought with people before, only with spiders. Moros listens carefully to these guys. He looks very interested in their story and wants to hear more. They say they were torn apart every time they were reborn, the spiders dragging them down one by one. After listening to these pitiful stories from the goblins, the troll understands that he needs to teach them basic techniques. He thinks the best solution is to send these weaklings into a cave and let them catch a couple of spiders. Events are transferred to the lobby. Moros approached Sherlock and interested him in the fact that he had a great idea. He offers to catch a couple of spiders to make the goblin training more effective. Sherlock agreed to this. Moros asks his master not to worry, because he will not allow his servants to die in vain. But the guy only meant that this troll should take care of himself, and if danger arises, he should ignore the goblins. After this, Moros looks at the guy with a strange expression on his face. He is very glad that Sherlock cares about him. He tells the guy that he will be useful to him, and Sherlock says that he will wait for him to return as soon as possible. The troll has returned to the training ground, and is trying to find people willing to go with him to catch spiders. Among the goblins, there were many willing. This greatly surprised Moros, because he thought that goblins were all cowards. Right now, he is going to choose 10 from among the willing ones, and the rest will go with him next time. After his words, he begins to look thoughtfully at the crowd of goblins, and they look back at him, waiting for his choice. One of the goblins approaches Moros and tells him that if his life is in danger, then he should just run. Events are transferred to spider caves. One of the goblins asks everyone to be on alert. In case of danger, they must save the trainer. The troll does not like their caution. He believes that they might allow themselves to be discovered. They see the character of this NPC. They are actually impressed by him, because he can even interact with them. They think that it may be that he will simply cancel the task, because the game is realistic and anything can happen. While they were communicating with each other, some noise attracted their attention. They will be quieter because perhaps someone is walking. For safety reasons, all the goblins decided to remain silent for a while and hide behind boulders. It turned out that all this noise was made by a bunch of spiders, which if they noticed them, they would pounce to eat them. The troll also paid attention to them and suggests that the group finish off one and simply distract the rest. The determined Moros gave a command to his comrades, after which he headed straight towards these spiders. The spiders noticed the aggression from the goblins. They are already standing and are about to take on this fight. We can observe how Moros, as the strongest member of this group, was the first to run towards the spider. With just one swing of his sword, he cut off this monster's poisonous fangs, thereby disarming him. It turned out that he had one more fang left. He began to hiss at the troll and wanted to strike. In response, Moros swung his sword and believes that it would be an honor for this spider to die from his sword. After his words, the trainer was about to finish off this spider, after which he was distracted by the voice of one of the goblins. This goblin thought that his trainer was in danger now, so he decided to just push him away. After this push, the goblin took the place of the troll and himself was hit by the spider. He was simply pierced. It turns out that this spider simply pierced him with its paw, and right now the goblin is lying and suffering. Moros decided to help his friend, who really needs help right now. He hit the spider. The troll asks the goblin Arthur to distract the spider's attention, and he and the others will surround him. Arthur understood him. Now we can watch how a bunch of goblins surrounded this spider and began to strike at it from all sides. The bearded goblin motivates his comrades and asks them not to press the pace. He wants them to continue beating the monster. After some time, they finally defeated this monster. They are very happy about this because this is their very first time. Meanwhile, Moros realizes that they have known each other for less than 2 days, but it is difficult to understand why the goblin did this for him. He sees that the goblin is trying to cut off the spider's leg in order to escape. This is just an amazing will to live. The troll understands perfectly well that such unique fighters should not die such a death. He tells the goblin that he will not understand why he saved him, but he will always remember his wonderful feat. The goblin sees that the troll has extended his sword in front of him, after which he cannot understand why he is doing all this. This goblin is a brave warrior. The troll wants him to leave with dignity, so no words are needed and everything will be fine. He asks to wait because it might come in handy. He also asks for help from his goblin friends with this problem. The goblin does not understand why this NPC wants to kill him. Apparently a wound entails death, but perhaps he wants to help him. Moros, watching this guy, realizes with surprise that he doesn't feel any pain at all from this paw in his stomach. Modus looks after the leaving goblins, and still does not understand how high willpower this goblin has. The comrade supports the wounded friend, saying how strong and fast he was. If not for him, they would have failed the mission. Modus is dissatisfied with this picture. He believes that he also deserved praise from them, but never received it. Next, this troll decides to cough a little, apparently in order to attract their attention and remind them of something. He asked them to shut up because he wants silence, after which he gave the order to 2 goblins to take this spider. They went down into the dungeon, after which it became clear from the screams that the wounded goblin was getting sick. After this, the coach begins to shed tears. He says that he will mourn this brave warrior. He already invites the goblins to start praying for their brother and wishing him a successful journey in the other world. However, in response, he was only asked to shut up because they had almost reached the dungeon. Now they would cure him. They are joyfully greeted by the rest of the players. They are very happy that, in their opinion, they have become witnesses to history. The dead goblin was brought straight to the main character. He is asked to help resurrect this guy because they carried him here for a long time. Sherlock, with a very important look, begins to approach the corpse, and Moros is about to turn to the guy to say something. Without any words, Sherlock walked up to the lying goblin and began to use his magic, after which the goblin woke up. Realizing that he has finally woken up, this goblin decides to do a somersault to check if everything is all right with him. He is glad that he is alive and well, and his wounds are no matter what. The others are just as happy for him, and he will continue to work. Moros saw this unusual picture and was very surprised that this guy was resurrected right now in front of him. We see the events that take place on the streets of the dungeon. Right now, we are seeing a meeting between the troll and Sherlock. Sherlock says he can resurrect them endlessly. No matter what state they are in, he can bring them back. He considers himself a noble demon and a skilled craftsman for those goblins who are subordinate to him. The troll listened to his master's words and really admires him. He thinks this guy is very cool. He says that the drizzle does not meet the special requirements, so such a resurrection will not work with it. His dungeon is special, so they need warriors who can adapt, and only by choice can Moros accept this. The troll says that he is ready to give him his soul and serve until the end of his days. After signing the contract, he will become a servant. Sherlock sees that the troll is still playing at his age, but the new generation of demons is relying on humans. The guy picks him up from the ground and says that it is not at all necessary to sign the contract because he has a family. If he wants to work with peace of mind, Sherlock is considering accepting him and his family in the future. The troll listens intently to a guy who is about to try something, seeing great potential in him. The troll is already in tears. He holds the master's hand and tries to say something, but the tears in his eyes are getting in the way. Moros realizes that he must prove his loyalty to the master in order to receive the same privileges as goblins. Blue is well aware that the goblins are players from another world in exchange for the loyalty of the Moros, but it is better to remain a secret. The guy is wondering what will happen if the other rulers find out that he has someone of the blue type. Blue understands that they will start a war to take him for themselves. Sherlock agrees with his words, so they need to become stronger. Sherlock, with an interested face, asks Blue how many players from another world he can recruit. He says that the 100 people they currently have is the limit. To increase this limit, they need a Blue update. To increase the number of recruits, they need to make an announcement or a vacancy, so they will open more sites. Looking at all this, the Demon Lord understands perfectly well that his wallet will once again be empty. For now, 100 players is enough. He wants to discuss this after they deal with the mine. Now Sherlock watches his bunch of goblins train at the training ground. Perhaps he is proud of them. At the moment, some of the goblins are learning to fight, and the other part is working in the mine. The guy sees that everything is fine. One of the goblins is now working at the anvil and doing forging. The others seem to be growing grass. You can also hear the loud cry of those goblins who are training. Perhaps they have a bright future. The goblin at the anvil turns to Simba, wanting to check with him whether their long-awaited equipment is ready. He also sees that this NPC has an automatic information filtering function, and is very surprised by this. It turns out that Simba had a fight with the goblins in the morning, and is now sitting sad, not wanting to talk to anyone. He asks to wait a little because they still need to put it up for sale. The goblin thought that they should hurry up. The goblin runs away from Simba, and on the way reminds him to sharpen his blade so that spiders can be cut like butter with a knife. Meanwhile, the main character turns to Blue, reminding him to make a card for Simba's new equipment. A card has been made that describes the diamond shield, which is a common white piece of equipment. The goblin tells his comrade that the wasteland is now open. They need to collect equipment, undergo training, and they can fight. A bunch of goblins approach their leader. They offer him various buffs for luck, and they want him to pay attention to them. Sherlock asks Blue if they can successfully complete this mission this time, after everything they've been through. Blue says the odds are high at this point. Many of them are seasoned players and have the equipment. While the two were calmly talking to each other, a loud sound caught their attention and they turned around. It turned out that it was one of the goblin miners who shouted because he found something strange during his work. In the next chapter, you can see how many goblins crowded to this place. They look at the thing and think that there is gold there. The goblin with the pickaxe only hit him a couple of times, and the pickaxe was taken and broken. He thinks that it is clearly worth it. They continue to look at this item in surprise and think that it is a new game item. Meanwhile, Sherlock comes towards them. After a while, their master approached them. The goblin asks him to look at what he could find right now. The main character was pleased with what he saw. He really wants Simba to come and evaluate this item. Next, the guy tells the goblins to mind their own business, and they should leave the rest to Simba. Simba came to the main hall of the dungeon and already began to carefully study this material. He says that it is gold ore, but not of very high quality. Sherlock wonders if it can be sold. Simba says that it is possible. It all depends on the quality and demand. The guy asks if it is possible to create a pickaxe for mining this ore. Simba will send a request to the store. The guy asks him to later get him 10 handfuls of this ore because it will come in handy. The blacksmith understands perfectly well what he needs to do and begins his work with a serious look. While the two were chatting and going about their business, something suddenly caught their attention. These are armed goblins. They are going to stop the monsters. If they fail, they will try again. We see from the side how these determined warriors are about to jump into the portal and hit the road. The blacksmith is angry because this group of idiots thinks only of themselves. It seems to him that they consider him an ordinary blacksmith. Simba tells the master about how the goblins had a fight with him, and now they don't dig ore, but apparently they want to achieve something. Meanwhile, two bald goblins are bothering him to the point of drizzling. He is already thinking about deviating from his plan. The guy asks Blue to go on a quest to build a dormitory with the goblins. Blue will arrange everything. We see some qualified props. The goal of the mission is to build 2 dormitories. For this, they will give coins and reputation. The goblin is happy. He understands that when the dormitory for the NPCs is built, he will be able to get there, but Simba will then feed him to the rodents. We are shown the events that take place in the spider's nest. A bunch of goblins are hiding in a shelter and looking into the tunnel. The goblin with the beautiful hair noticed a bunch of red eyes in the dark and got very tense because of it. The spiders decided not to sit on the defensive, but to go straight to the attack. There are too many of them and they hope to win. We see how one of the spiders has already rushed straight towards the goblin with a hairstyle, and he jumped to the side. They understand that the tank must go first, after which they all decide to attack these nasty spiders. They are about to hit the spider. The brown-haired goblin warns the goblin named Xiong Mao about the impending danger. He also tells Xiong Mao not to be greedy, but just beat this spider and step back so that there are no problems. We see how a brave bearded man ran up to a huge spider and struck it with his sword directly in the belly. Xiong Mao also struck with his sword directly at the paw of this spider, and it apparently begins to fear for its life, and for good reason. More and more goblins run up to this spider, and it, being wounded, only hisses at them and is about to take the blow. The goblins remember their lessons from the drizzle. They are going to surround this spider and beat it from all sides because it's time to hunt. These green strongmen were able to defeat this pathetic spider, after which they only rejoice, not knowing what awaits them next. They continue to rejoice, raising their swords up, because after a lot of attempts, they managed to cope with them. However, that's not all. We still need to deal with the remaining spiders. They are going to go and show them who's boss. This spider suddenly began to hiss, after which it struck the ground, causing the goblins to scatter to the sides. The hairy one asks if his brothers are okay. The bearded one tells him that they are okay, but doesn't want to miss the spider. The red-haired man says that it's okay, because they already finished off 3 and did a great job today. Having looted resources from the spider, the red-haired man realizes that it's time for them to return so that the master can see their success. They return to the center of the underground city. Sherlock and Blue see this. The guy is now proud of their success. Blue is also very happy for them. Apparently, their training with Maras is producing very good results. And then the blue color changed to red. He understands that this means that a message was sent to his master. In the next chapter, the guy took this letter and believes that it must be straight from the forge. He will read it now. In this letter, someone says that they received his letter and congratulate the guy on mining gold ore and want to cooperate with him. This letter was from the team of the forge. Not the most expensive. The guy read about the caravan. Blue doesn't understand what it is. Judging by the current performance of these players, they will probably want to make it difficult for the caravan, and that means something. It will be quite difficult to explain to them that their copper coins have no value because they don't know anything yet. As for the caravan, he is afraid that the goblins will blurt out something strange. The secrets of their dungeon may be revealed. Blue thinks that the appearance of a caravan in a dungeon can be regarded as a game event. They can choose a material to exchange and give it to the goblins. For this, it will be an event reward. Sherlock realizes that his friend is actually saying smart things because it can solve many problems. The main thing is to discuss the price with the caravan and choose materials for the players. This way, everyone will be happy. They will not rush, they will talk when the caravan arrives. Now they will go to the goblins with rewards. The goblins remember how Simba told them that they could improve their equipment with the help of these spiders. They don't understand why they didn't have any props this time, but it's most likely some kind of accident. The goblins understand that spider silk is very difficult to collect, but this is understandable because it is a rare material. We see the resource recycling interface. Sherlock believes that this is the only way to make them stronger. While they are cutting down the spider, Sherlock realizes that the resource processing system will soon open. Blue understands that they really know their business and this simply cannot but please him. After this, the satisfied main character, together with Blue, begin to calmly leave this room to go about their business. And then someone's scream attracts their attention, and the rest of the goblins also paid attention to this. It turns out that the red-haired man decided to start his own business based on the guide from Andrew Tate. Now he sells spider legs for 10 copper coins apiece. You can immediately notice an influx of a large number of clients. Some are ready to give 25 coins and others as much as 35. And then the richest goblin comes up with a bag of coins and tells the seller that he wants to buy all these paws. Meanwhile, the rest of the goblins understand that nothing can be done with their amount of coins, and they need to work. Sherlock sees that the goblins are going to hurry up because they need copper coins for various purchases. Sherlock and Blue understand that the goblins have begun to engage in trade. This is a very popular option for exchanging resources. The guy wanted to recycle these things into materials, make equipment, and sell them at a higher price. It turns out that they want to move on to making equipment bypassing the guy, but they can regulate the currency along with the price. These two can also set up boosts for equipment, which will speed up players' currency consumption. Sherlock is interested in this. He wants to find out more about it from Blue and will listen to him carefully. After upgrading, the equipment will improve each time. You just need to install some materials. The probability of an upgrade is not 100%, but the higher the level, the higher the damage. If the upgrade does not work out, you need to buy new equipment. Coupons for improvement can be purchased for copper coins, and you can also increase the number of props. This way, they will be able to simultaneously process currency and weapons, then reforge them and sell them to players. We see events in the blacksmith's yard. A handsome goblin is now walking around and counting something on a piece of paper. While the goblin was looking at his piece of paper, something caught his attention and he looked at it in surprise. He sees that Simba has hung signs on which it is written about improving equipment and various information. Players can use webs and claws to strengthen and improve each piece of equipment, can be improved up to 5 times. The goblin attracted the attention of his comrades and asks to look at this because there are new conditions for improvement. But the goblins are not happy with this. They think that they have been deprived of the opportunity to survive. They do not like the possibility of equipment failure. A brown-haired goblin with a serious look approaches the blacksmith. He intends to improve his weapon, so he must go after Simba. The remaining goblins see that their comrade is going into some room. They became interested, so they look. Simba entered this room, after which he silently approached the anvil and began to forge something on it. Meanwhile, the goblins are watching this with interest. They want to see if he can improve. The work in turn is in full swing. The blacksmith continues to work with the equipment of the brown-haired goblin. The goblins continue with this and are very surprised by the cool special effects that are happening right in front of them. While all the goblins are distracted by this incredible process, one of them crawls from below, following his goals. He continues to crawl. No one has noticed him yet. It would be very interesting to know what he wants now. It turns out that he was crawling for some piece of paper. He grabbed it and is going to examine it right now. Looking at this paper, his eyes began to glow with happiness. He thinks it's cool and is going to build something. Meanwhile, no one has yet noticed his tricks. Everyone is watching how the blacksmith carries out his work. While they are watching this, it is already beginning to seem to them that this all seems to be no longer a scam. Simba says that everything is almost ready. This will be the first weapon enhancement on the whole server. The improvement was successful. Simba is already transferring the enhanced sword into the hands of its owner, and he thanks him. He looks at the characteristics of his weapon. He looks with his face as if nothing had happened to him. The goblin is a little perplexed. It seems to him that this weapon has not changed at all. Apparently, Simba needs to explain himself. The rest of the goblins turn to this brown-haired man and ask him to let them try this sword, wanting to feel the enhancement. The brown-haired man with a pleased look says that he needs to go get his hand in, and the others want him to show his sword. And then a red-haired goblin approaches the blacksmith, who also wants to improve his weapon, and they notice this. He asks to add several attributes for him. He wants to find out from the blacksmith whether he can do this or not. The goblin is already infuriating Simba. He also asks to make the blade thinner, but Simba is trying to ignore him. The red-haired man had already greatly infuriated this blacksmith. Simba could not stand it and, refusing him, kicked him out of the room with a kick in the ass. Meanwhile, the rest of the goblins ask him to let them look at the sword. He handed it over to them without any problems. They don't see the difference between his sword and a regular one, but it's rude to say that because this loser paid for it. We see events in the center of the dungeon. Sherlock and Blue are watching the goblins, and it seems to them that they are happy with the update. By the way, they should update the official website. Sherlock is wondering what needs to be done for this. They look at the list of updates they have made recently. Many players have paid attention to them. We see a caravan and find out that there is also a preview of the event with the caravan. After some time, the main character sits down at his computer and is about to enter the system space. He is going to post that the Eternal Realm dungeon has been updated. He hopes that everything will work out. People are reacting to this update. Many are already wondering when the public beta will be available. Sherlock understands that the post went well. Under his rule, the dungeon acquired a high reputation. Right now, the guy is moving his mouse somewhere, and meanwhile considers himself a great fellow. He saw something on the computer and got tensed. He asks Blue if they have any secrets. On the computer, you can see news from the first tester. He discovered an amazing secret of the dungeon. In the next chapter, we see a post in which Simba's cousin asks to recommend him to Sherlock. That would be great. You can also see the hot news that there is a caravan in the dungeon now. It looks like another update is coming. Sherlock sees that Simba's brother wants to work for him, but it seems to the guy that there is a much more important question. The content on which they bet big is now known to players, judging by various comments. Blue offers to do everything through the Public Relations Center. Sherlock is interested in how exactly. This post is just a logical guess from the player about the upcoming update. Now there are more than 16 pages of answers. They can perfectly use this as advertising. Thanks to this, they will be able to attract more and more players. Sherlock wants to make another publication. Blue agrees with this because the players trust the official news. Then the main character is going to give them a surprise. Blue understands what he is talking about. They made an in-game announcement that a caravan from Winterfell would soon arrive in their dungeon, and they would be able to make an exchange. They like people's reaction to this announcement. I didn't expect anything else. The forum will also come to life after the arrival of the caravan. After some time, the goblin has finished building the tasks. Another reminds him that it is worth picking up the reward. Then a red-haired man appears and asks his comrades who wants to join a joint group for mining. There were a lot of people willing. He decided to accept some of them and asked them to prepare because it would start soon. Suddenly we are shown Xiong Mao, who is right now defending with his sword from the paw of a huge spider. While he was defending himself from the spider, the brown-haired goblin jumped on this spider and dealt a strong blow to it, thereby helping his friend.
Two bald goblins with happy faces tie up the spider they previously defeated with their entire group.
Two goblin girls are chopping some green tentacles, or these are some plants that are just as dangerous. The goblins gathered near the corpses of the monsters and realized that today they were very lucky. It was time to sort out resources. However, this time too many goblins fell in the battle, so Lord Sherlock will have to work hard. We learn that Sherlock has actually been quite busy these days. We wonder what he's been up to. He sees how the goblins brought the bodies of their comrades to him and asked him for help with smiles on their faces. Some armless goblin asks his master for help one more time. The guy already looks unhappy. A goblin approaches him and cannot find his head. The main character already looks tired. Blue flies up to Sherlock because she is worried about his current mental state after all this. The guy was thinking about hiring a sorcerer to help him with their treatment. He was interested in the guy's condition. It's just that Sherlock can no longer withstand the enthusiasm of players in exploring the wasteland, but still there is not enough budget for a sorcerer. Blue, meanwhile, felt that a group of people were heading towards the dungeon. The guy could look at them. Of course, Sherlock decided to check who was heading towards them, because anything could be there. As he begins to observe, he sees that it must be a caravan, so he needs to go out and meet them properly. In the next chapter, Sherlock goes to meet the caravan. The goblins are wondering what happened and want to follow him. The goblins ask him how he is doing and talk about other things, thereby irritating Sherlock. Apparently the main character couldn't stand it at all, and scattered these nasty goblins in different directions. They get up from the ground and don't understand why they did this to them. They just wanted to see what was there. The main character doesn't care about their request to go with him. He decided to go alone, which is why he won't take anyone with him. After walking some distance, he stopped. Because he noticed something in front of him, he looks at it with a serious face. He sees a guy in front of him who says that they are a caravan from Winterfell, are under the protection of the Trading League. The main character tells him that he came out here to greet them. He introduced himself to them, so everything is fine. The guy introduces himself in response. He bows to Sherlock and says that he is a baron named Nicholas. The demon lord asks to drop politeness because he needs to talk about something. Nicholas is interested. He hands Nicholas a book related to the event of the caravan from Winterfell. Nicholas will look and understand everything himself. He took this book and begins to read the contents. There is a step-by-step plan for how the caravan should operate. Nicholas had never seen anything like this before. He didn't like the fact that he couldn't ask questions or show curiosity. However, the guy from the caravan is still happy to cooperate with Sherlock, of course. This is mutual for the main character. He asks Sherlock to present him with the items from their caravan. Sherlock wants to see them as soon as possible. Nicholas shows the pickaxe needed to mine gold ore. It costs 500 magic stones, which is exactly what is needed. Bluehair wonders if they have goods suitable for dungeon spectators, as they should. The seller shows some goods. Sherlock, looking at them, thinks that they are quite good for his residence. The main character also learned that the caravan accepts parts of spiders and killer vines, but this is all in limited quantities. Nicholas decides to clarify whether it is true that new resources have recently begun to appear in the dungeon.
Sherlock already thinks that this may not be enough, but Nicholas says that this is not so. This is quite enough.
If they send a helper to the caravan, they will give magic stones. I wonder why they don't use the people from the caravan. He says that the price will increase with each trip. If Sherlock is ready to help, then he will increase the reward. Sherlock thinks that it's enough to talk about rewards. He wonders if it's possible to exchange stones for pickaxes. Now we see some goblins from the dungeon. They notice someone coming in their direction and are very happy about it. It turned out that these were members of a caravan riding large animals. It looks very cool and unusual. Nicholas noticed that Sherlock's servants looked too worried. The main thing was that they did not frighten. Goblins see creepy monsters and understand that the forum will definitely explode today with cool screenshots of them. The main character is trying to calm the goblins because a guest has arrived from afar, so etiquette must be observed. The overly curious goblin jumped straight onto the large animal, wanting to take a look at what it had on it. Nicholas saw this. He looks very scared and asks this goblin to stop because it's dangerous to do this. With his jump, he scared this animal. It reared up and one gets the feeling that he was about to step on it. And so it happened. This animal stepped on the goblin and turned him into puree. Death was quite quick. Nicholas is scared. He now doesn't know what to do because he just arrived here and has already killed one of the residents. In the next chapter, the goblins began to laugh at their fallen comrade because some NPC stepped on him. Nicholas sees that the goblins are very happy to die. Now he is convinced that they are really crazy. Sherlock asks for forgiveness for the carelessness of his servant. Nicholas asks not to worry because there will be compensation. Then you'll have to pay his grandparents, parents, wife, 10 children, and his paralyzed sister. Nicholas is simply shocked. It seems to him that the main character decided to joke because it would cost too much. Sherlock asks to pay only 200 stones. He will cover the rest, namely several thousand magic stones. The monsters below dissuade Nicholas because the life of this goblin is not worth more than 50 stones. Sherlock understands everything. Thousands of people who want to join his dungeon appear every day and discuss him. Hearing his words, Nicholas assumes that Sherlock is either a big liar or a second-generation villain. With his rules and these crazy goblins, the second option is much more likely. Now it seems to him that the guy is not lying. He asks Sherlock for forgiveness and hands over 200 stones, after which he is going to go prepare the goods. And then Sherlock, judging by this baron, understands that blackmailing people in our time is very easy. A quarter of an hour later, they announce that the Chamber of Commerce event is starting. The baron is interested in what is written in the ad, but in response, Sherlock reminds him of the 5th clause of their contract. Nicholas remembered that the 5th paragraph said that he should refrain from asking any questions. Joyful goblins run, realizing that the event has begun. They see a bunch of things and useful equipment. Nicholas is worried and does not understand whether these wild guys will be able to make out what is written here. Meanwhile, the goblins stopped running, after which they began to look at the goods that the caravan had brought. The goblins decide not to waste their time. They are going to organize a raid and get resources. The baron once again asks a question about the strange behavior of goblins. Sherlock reminds him of the 5th rule. And then Nicholas realizes that once again he said too much. He decides to wait and find out what Sherlock is up to. 2 goblins decided to make an exchange. One gives a fabric bag, and the second goblin gives another thing. The brown-haired goblin is very happy that he finally has something to store, and the second one is happy about the money. Nicholas asks a question for the 3rd time. Asking what is wrong with his goblins, Sherlock reminds him of the 5th rule. The baron pretends that he understood everything. The main character is convinced of this and says that he will go first. An hour later, a guy comes up to Nicholas and surprises him with the words that these goblins are very strong. Meanwhile, these goblins have returned. They have obtained a ton of resources and are already looking to start making exchanges. The goblins notice that this vampire has been following them for over an hour. They think that he is waiting for them to start a new plot. They stood right in front of this guy and still think he has a plot for them, or maybe a treasure map. Meanwhile, Nicholas does not understand why these arrogant creatures behave this way, because he is a noble baron. And then the red-haired genius wondered if a new plot would appear if they cut it with a sword. The guy is surprised that these goblins are not at all afraid of the vampire. They rely only on their strength. He believes that they are probably just confident in Sherlock's strength, which is why they behave this way. It turns out that Sherlock is actually not that simple, but Nicholas still needs to make friends with Sherlock. With crazy eyes, he runs to the main character and shouts that he wants to talk to him about cooperation. The goblins noticed how this guy began to run away from them. They believed that this was the start of a new plot. In the next chapter, he already talks to Sherlock. Nicholas says that he wants to start investing in the dungeon. The goblins also see that this dude is praising them in the presence of the Lord. They are delighted and expect the quest. Nicholas offers to join the Underground Cities Alliance. It will cost only a little gold from his reserves. Sherlock understands that this will cut costs, but the alliance could cause problems. Now is not the time for that. Nevertheless, he decides to refuse the offer, and besides, he entered into an agreement with another team. The Baron still believes that Sherlock is actually a rich guy. He believes that the relationship urgently needs to be improved. If everything is so, then Nicholas offers to forget about his proposal. He gives him 1,000 stones for his hospitality. Sherlock didn't understand what kind of hospitality we were talking about, because he made him sleep on the floor. This guy is strange. After this, the main character tells the Baron that this is indecent and begins to put money in his pocket. And then Nicholas takes out a teleportation scroll. With its help, you can send resources. They will be waiting in Winterfell. Sherlock does not understand what kind of attitude this is, because he received 1,000 stones and is not required to pay for transportation. Then the bark gets up and leaves, because he still has things to do, and resources need to be delivered within 3 days. The guy is happy that he was recognized, and the goblins see his happy face and find this storyline interesting. 3 days later, we see the caravan saying goodbye to Sherlock. He wants them to say hi to Nicholas. The goblins are surprised that these 3 days have passed quite quickly. They want the next event. Sherlock is now going to Winterfell and asks Blue to send a notification to everyone. Blue understands what needs to be done. Now the goblins see an announcement from Blue that Sherlock is leaving, and no one can stop them. They also learn that as compensation, everyone will receive 200 reputation points and 100 coins. Happy goblins understand that it's time to start working. You can see how much they love to do it. We see events in Winterfell. Some slime greets Sherlock and introduces himself as Nicholas's butler. Sherlock offers to check the slime's cargo to see if everything is in place, but he believes that there is no need. The guy asks to tell the Baron that he is delighted. The butler asks if he needs anything. The main character needs 100 beds and is interested in the price. The butler showed the list and it will cost 800 stones. Sherlock also needs a carpenter who knows how to cook. They just have one. Slime will handle the delivery. The guy realizes that this time they spent a lot of money. He wonders if the players will like it all. Blue suddenly felt that the players were in danger. The two of them realized that they needed to return to the dungeon. After Blue sent the notification, there were still players in the spider caves, and that was the problem. Meanwhile, these goblins see the appearance of new monsters. Looking at them, it seems to them that they are stronger than spiders. We see some villainess with her servants walking straight towards them. They look serious. After some time, the red-eyed girl stopped in place and now looks at the pitiful goblins. The goblins understand that things are bad, and that is why they decide to make a tactical retreat. Meanwhile, the girl is having fun with some of them. She hits them with her whip, causing them to fly away. Throwing several goblins in different directions, she decided to pin one of them to the ground and hit her with a mace. The goblins are now very scared. They see what she is doing to their comrade and run to the portal to escape. They believe that it was the boss. They realize that she was very strong, and the situation becomes interesting. Blue says that everyone is waiting for Sherlock to take control of the situation. The guy is already having a headache from this. However, Blue thinks this is good news because they can turn the situation to their advantage. In the next chapter, Blue says that with this, players can feel a sense of duty and destiny. This is motivating. But it seemed to Sherlock that their duty was to serve him, but with the help of the quest, they would serve more zealously. If saving the world is too difficult for them, then they can choose the topic of defending the homeland. The guy should believe Blue. Sherlock trusts him. Blue says that he should buy arrows and provide combat power. Then there will be a notification. In this case, Sherlock decides to find the butler Baron Nicholas. He understands that the players need to be motivated. Half an hour later, the main character in Blue returned back to the dungeon. They are waiting to be warmly greeted. The goblins are glad that Sherlock is back. It seems to them that he is up to something and they are interested in what exactly. Then the players saw a notification that described quests and bosses. Of course, they were very happy about this. They continue to rejoice, and this makes them scream at the top of their voices, after which they decide to run and fight together. Sherlock sees that thanks to the main quest, their motivation has increased. Blue thanks the guy. Now they must attack the Banshee's lair, then work and so on in a circle. But it seems to Blue that the goblins will not do that. The red-haired goblin asks Sherlock for some information regarding the Banshee, but he knows nothing about her. The goblins understand that you can't cook any mess with Sherlock, so each of them wants to appeal to different people. Sherlock does not understand what they are doing. Blue says that they are not collecting clues on how to defeat the boss. It is for their benefit. The goblin asks Simba if he can tell him about the Claymore Banshee tribe, because he has been on many adventures. However, in response, Simba tells the goblin that the sword he was going to improve suddenly just broke. 2 hours later, Simba asks Sherlock about the Claymore Banshee. Sherlock believes that the goblins are provoking him. The blacksmith just said that the Banshee is not a particularly advanced life form, and they then interrogated him for 2 hours. Sherlock apologizes to Simba and is going to increase his salary, but in the future there is no need to say anything. Meanwhile, Blue decides to contact the main character and says that the players have developed a new mod. We see a bunch of armed goblins who, apparently, are completely ready to kick the boss's ass. Sherlock doesn't understand what they're doing, and Blue tells him that they're going on an adventure. They have challenged a boss that has never been challenged before. He is going to bravely fight for the dungeon. Meanwhile, the villains continue to scatter these weak goblins left and right. They should train. The guy doesn't understand why players often do this. Blue believes that with such a strategy, he can win. In another world, players were given cool nicknames because of their strength, for example, Evil Monkey and others. The red-haired man learned that the Banshee is not mentally connected to the boss. If you distract the attention of several, they will win. They have only one serious opponent, namely the Claymore, but they will be able to quickly deal with the Banshee. It also became interesting who would be responsible for the sabotage. A willing person appeared from the crowd. Sherlock wonders what they are talking about. We learn that sabotage is insults and attacks to distract attention. Meanwhile, we see the badass goblin giving the Banshee the middle finger just to distract him. Of course, the Banshee didn't like this, and he chased after the goblin. Apparently everything was going according to their plan, and that's good. However, the Banshee turned out to be too fast. He caught up with this goblin and delivered his blow, causing him to fly back. However, the goblin still managed to reach his comrades. They understand that this is the ideal moment to attack. They decided not to waste time, after which each of them fired one shot from a bow at the Banshee. One of them is already dead. One of the goblins asks not to panic and continue firing to finish them off. 3 days later, we see a lone Claymore boss who has lost all of her Loki in one brutal battle. Blue sees that these players are quite good. Sherlock has never seen such smart goblins. In the next chapter, the guy doesn't understand why the goblins stopped fighting, perhaps discussing tactics on the forum. He decides to go to the forum through his computer and is surprised to see that they like to discuss such topics. The goblins believe that the main storyline has finally begun, and it is hard. They fought and died. There is nothing wrong with death, but there is compensation. Reconstruction and purchasing work cost 50,000 coins. Red Hair talks about going offline to develop a plan to defeat the Claymore. Sherlock sees that everyone is contributing to the development of the dungeon. Meanwhile, the arrows and carpenters' houses have been delivered. They decided to go and check what was going on there and saw goblins doing their work. The troll tells the guy that finding carpenters will take a little time. He doesn't push him and says hi to Nicholas. Sherlock understands that they are going to attack the Claymore, so she ordered arrows that players can buy. This news makes the goblins very happy, because the arrows are very necessary. Now they will definitely be able to finish off this Claymore. Meanwhile, the cunning protagonist realizes that this storyline worked perfectly, and that's good. An hour later, Sherlock sees a post on Reddit with a strategy for attacking the leader of the Banshee Claymore tribe. He is interested. Before the guy tells the strategy, he wants to restart the game. Each mob in this game has unique skills. The main attack of a Claymore is a hammer blow. You can take advantage of the moment when it takes a break and attack. Archers must stay as close to the target as possible and aim before each shot to avoid misses. The gaps between the armor are the weak point of the Claymore, and besides, her face and some parts of her body are not covered with armor. This professional player has provided an action plan for his comrades, so they are ready to carry out an attack. Everyone who participates must log in within 10 minutes. They must win this battle. 10 minutes later, a crowd of goblins are already heading towards the boss. They shouldn't die too quickly, and it's worth remembering the plan. Then we see how the goblins got to the Claymore. She saw them and pretends that she is not afraid of them at all. One of the goblins decided to provoke this woman. He once again showed his middle finger and insulted her. Of course, the red-eyed one didn't like this at all. She swung her mace and scared the poor guy. She successfully struck the brave goblin, from which there was not even anything left. The others see this and are very shocked. Another goblin with a sword decides to attack from behind to avenge his friend, but the Claymore noticed this in time. Nevertheless, the goblin managed to strike. He only stuck his toothpick into the leg of this woman and nothing more. She looked at him, but he wasn't even afraid of it. He just decided to say hello to this beautiful lady. Claymore, with one movement of her hand, threw this weakling back several meters. He could not do anything to her. The red-haired goblin looks at the boss very surprised and is going to try to do something with her. However, the boss was against his idea. She simply turned around and pinned him to the ground with a sharp blow of her mace. The rest of the goblins noticed this and realized that the commander was dead. They did not expect this fool to die so quickly. After this, most of the group of goblins began to panic. The archers were shooting at random and others were trying to calm them down. Xiongmao strikes with his weapon directly at the boss's leg. The blow was critical, and now he considers himself cool in the game. After the blow was struck, this goblin even managed to jump to the side unharmed, surprising everyone. The claymore flew into a rage. She jumped on them, and the goblins, frightened, tried to run away from her. The boss successfully caught up with them and delivered a very powerful blow, causing all the green fools to fly apart. Next, we see how the mace crushes the bearded goblin Gigachad, who advises the others to go on the attack. The rest of the goblins obeyed his words and began firing their bows directly at the claymore, which made her feel bad. 4 hours later, we see a defeated claymore and a couple of fallen goblins. The mission was successfully completed. The goblins are carrying the bodies of the boss into the dungeon. They hope that Lord Sherlock will give them a special reward for all this. Blue is curious that the guy prepared a reward for the players, but he only found a way to squeeze coins out of them. Sherlock is going to auction off the equipment he received from his boss and will impose a 20% tax on it. Blue now considers the guy a real demon, and Sherlock is confident that this plan is as reliable as a Swiss watch. In the next chapter, the guy asks Simba how much equipment he will get. It turns out there will be 3 weapons and 3 sets of armor. Sherlock wants a sword, a hammer, and a dagger. It will take 1 day, and this suits the main character. The equipment must have a unique function of soul binding so that it is not lost. Sherlock likes this. We see a notification saying that the boss materials and reward will be distributed among the players. They were very happy to hear this. Someone is going to buy the coins at the highest price. Meanwhile, others are building a house. Sherlock asks them not to worry, because the beds and the carpenter will arrive soon. He will tell them everything they need. The process of teleportation has begun in the dungeon. This attracts attention, and everyone wonders who it could be. After this, a pretty girl appears in the dungeon, holding an instrument in her hands. She introduces herself to Sherlock and says that her name is Cindy. She is their new carpenter, and she has a contract in her hands for 3 months. The goblins like the appearance of this carpenter, and especially her watermelons. They cannot take their eyes off her. Sherlock greets her and warns her that the Eternal Kingdom is different from other places. He will tell her everything. Simba recognized his cousin in the carpenter, and does not know what she is doing here. She is also surprised that he works here. Sherlock liked the fact that these two knew each other, and the guy also remembered that Cindy was a professional cook and carpenter. They don't have enough materials to build houses yet, so temporarily she will be in the kitchen, and it's time for Simba to get down to business. Simba is glad that his cousin is here. If she can seduce Sherlock, she will be provided for life. It seems to her that Sherlock is poor, but this is only at first glance. The vampire Nicholas said that Sherlock is the son of a rich demon. After these words, she is ready to seduce Sherlock. She now needs to make a good impression on the guy. The goblins think the game is too realistic. Because Cindy's emotions are real, they already want to go to her kitchen. Cindy is chopping carrots and thinking about how she can seduce Sherlock because he is acting very aloof. Meanwhile, the goblins look at her with admiration and call her to come over to play. She does not understand what is wrong with them. The goblins can no longer control themselves. They do not want to waste time and decide to simply attack her. Cindy sees these strange things and understands exactly what they are going to do to her, so she will punish them. She scatters these goblins in different directions with precise blows, thereby showing that she is not to be trifled with. Now she stands and silently looks at these goblins, who are now simply lying unconscious after this thrashing. Other goblins notice this and realize that their comrades were dead, and they urgently needed to inform Sherlock about this. Meanwhile, the main character realizes that something is wrong in the dungeon now. He began to wonder what happened. The girl in tears says that they wanted to play with her. Apparently, she is trying to evoke pity from the guy. Even the goblins are in shock with her. She only single-handedly killed their brothers, and now she rushed to Sherlock in tears. The guy calms her down and tells the goblins not to enter the kitchen while trying to revive the dead. He understands that reviving these idiots is tiring. Blue thinks that he needs advice on making money from his girlfriend. At first, he didn't understand which girlfriend he was talking about, but later he realized that it was Evelyn from Winterfell. They came to Winterfell. The succubus says that the carpenter has been found and the guy should pay Evelyn as an intermediary. He asks about methods that will help the dungeon make money. She asks to pay for the information. The main character hands her a bag of money, saying that he will pay double the tariff. She now considers Lord Sherlock a reasonable person. She knows how to earn 100 times more. In the next chapter, you can see that the guy wants to hear about this method, but it costs more than a few stones. However, the main character tells her that it would not be very wise to bargain with a demon. This guy is very cool. Blue understands that he spent 20 points and turned on his charisma. He is a good manipulator, but this is normal for demons. Evelyn says that the Witch Academy is researching zombies. They need warriors for tests, but due to the danger, the pay is high. He wonders how high the salary is there, because he doesn't care about death. He can revive players. She doesn't know the details, so she needs to contact Professor Bacon. She gave her address, but goblins may not be suitable for the job. Evelyn now looks at the guy with a very hungry look and wishes good luck to Lord Sherlock. Further, he orders her to forget everything that just happened and come to her senses, because he got what he wanted. She woke up on his lap and doesn't understand what happened. Sherlock says that he paid and she jumped for joy. Evelyn asks for forgiveness because it was rude. The guy forgives her and says that he needs to go. Blue asks Sherlock why he didn't use the ability to make Evelyn do something else. This Sigma believes that some things are not as good if you force them, and now they need to get the opportunity to earn money. However, goblins are not suitable for this job, but they probably don't know that, especially since his goblins are special. The guy approached the employee and asked about Professor Bacon. He found out the location and had to register. This Giga Chad doesn't even need a pen. He registered on paper with the help of his powers and did it silently. After registration, he went with a business-like look to the room of the professor who would have to help him. The main character sees a red ball in front of him, which asks him what floor he needs. The guy with a sly smile says that he needs to go to the 21st floor. He really wants to meet the professor. After some time, the main character already found himself on the 21st floor, after which he went in search of the right room. We see two trolls who consider the professor to be very generous. Apparently, she is a very good and kind person. She is very generous, but apparently she likes to try something new every time. Perhaps she is tired of trolls. Sherlock smiles and understands that this professor has a certain inclination. Apparently, he can convince her. The guy knocks on her door, after which the professor, thinking that it was those two trolls, opened the door. She saw the guy and is trying to find out who he is. Sherlock introduced himself to her and wants to go inside to talk. He entered and asked about those trolls, finding out that they were students with great talent but were poor, and she wanted to help them. Sherlock wants to know the cost of testing and how many people are needed, but the requirements are high. Payment is 100 stones for each. The main character decides to offer something because in this way he can take care of this project. She is interested in this. She asks if he knows people who would be willing to risk their lives. Sherlock said about goblins, but she says that they are not suitable. The guy tells her that they are a very formidable force. The main character says that she can personally come and get acquainted with their power. She listens to him closely. Sherlock asks to give the goblins a chance. It could help her students. He knows where to find many strong, poor students. Bacon is interested in where their dungeon city is located, because she is going to arrive to them in 3 days. After a while, Sherlock and Blue arrived in the dungeon. The guy asks to tell Moros to set up a 3-day training camp. Simba also needs to increase the level of weapons to 80 and sell them at an auction. Blue suggests starting the main story quest. Sherlock wants to do just that, because they have a chance to make money and they can't miss it. The second day has arrived. We see a carpenter who asks the goblins to familiarize themselves with the characteristics of the lots before the auction. The goblins got acquainted with the lots, after which they were delighted with the new cool things. They were ready to spend all the money. After 15 minutes, Cindy announces the start of the auction. The first item is the Claymore sword. Starting price is 500 copper coins. The goblins offered different amounts. The highest was 20,000 coins, and the lowest was 600. It turned out that the sword was sold for 42,000 coins. She congratulates the winner on the new sword. Sherlock is happy about this because they sold the sword for more than expected. This time everyone will work harder and fight. He thinks it's time to send a letter to Professor Bacon, and besides, she is needed to play with him in a drama. Of course, this is a new strategy to deceive players so that he can earn even more magic stones. Isn't this drama? 3 days later, we see the goblins taking on the villains with new weapons. They think there is a new map coming soon. Sherlock has been showing the battle between goblins and monsters to Professor Bacon all this time. She finds it incredible. Sherlock wants to sign the agreement, but this is the first time she has seen such goblins, so she wants to watch for a couple of days. He did not expect such harshness from her, but there is no need to worry because players from other worlds are like that. She still agreed. They will cooperate and give them orders. This is a very large deal for a large amount. We see the goblin Arthur, who smilingly walks forward with his sword, unaware of the enemy behind his back. Arthur was warned of danger. He turned around and saw an enemy who was about to strike at him. The agile goblin was able to dodge this attack, after which he is going to show this enemy who is boss. After his dodge, he did not lose his temper and raised his sword above his head, after which he was going to pierce this rat. Apparently, Arthur was able to swing his sword straight at the enemy, thereby finally defeating him. However, not everything is so simple. The red-eyed monster stood up and hit Arthur, throwing him to the side. The goblin lands on his feet and is surprised that this thing is still alive and he needs to try hard to finish it off. And then a goblin girl appears who, pulling the arrow, asks him not to move because she might hit him. But even though that unlucky goblin didn't move, she still hit his forehead with an arrow. The red-haired man laughs at him. Because the situation is really ridiculous, Arthur asks him to stop laughing, because there is something wrong here. It turned out that these were monsters in the guise of goblins. They did not expect this and were going to run away from here. They could not run for long, and a battle began between the goblins and the monsters. Soon we will see the winners. During the battle, something strange began to happen. Some kind of cocoon was formed from which it looked like someone would come out. Professor Bacon herself came out from there and, having insulted the goblins, made them understand that she would kick all of their asses. They understand that a new plot has started. The waves of this boss are very chaotic, but so beautiful. Sherlock appeared with the intention of saving the goblins. Calling the girl Pay Manaroth, he says that he sensed her evil intentions. The drama they had planned begins. They enter the battle, but it seems that the Bacon is winning here. The guy pretends that he is not taking out this enemy and asks the people of the Eternal Kingdom to help him in battle. They try to help their lord and see that the special effects in the animation are amazing, and everything looks realistic. The girl sees that the goblins are very energetic. She wonders how Sherlock trained them to such an extent. They are literally salivating. The goblins attack the girl and are fighting for Sherlock and the Eternal Kingdom. Sherlock regained his strength thanks to their help. He tells the girl that nothing will work out for her, after which he threw some kind of red sharp projectile at her. This charge hit the girl directly, and judging by the expression on her face, this turn of events surprised her very much. She disappears from the battlefield and says that she will return here, and then no one will be able to stop her. A new mission begins. The goblins are glad that they will find themselves in a new chapter of the plot. They like this witch. In the next chapter, Sherlock realizes that they need a witch to build a portal and need to let the player get off the network. Blue made the transition to offline mode, and now all the nerds have lost their connection, which of course they are not happy about. Bacon is puzzled why the guy decided to put on a show for the goblins. It turns out this is some kind of entertainment for them. In this case, the main character turns to the professor and makes her understand his intentions to sign the agreement. She says she will sign the contract, but she wonders if the guy has enough goblins to do all this work. These two sign the agreement with smiles on their faces. Bacon agrees with all the points, which means the cooperation will be successful. After signing the contract, Professor Bacon looks at the main character with a sweet face and then says goodbye to him. Sherlock is glad that they finally signed the agreement. They need to give Simba and the others a vacation, and also conduct a survey among the players. 10 minutes later, Blue asks Sherlock to look at the survey and find out if everything is okay with him, so that he can post it later. The main character looked at this survey and reads the various questions that are in it. He liked everything and can post it. In the meantime, players are taking this survey. They find it very strange, but some people even like it, but not everyone. Blue says that it will take time to get a response from the players, but people also came to build the portal. Sherlock understands that he needs to make a charm so that the goblins do not contact anyone. The witch promises to do this. Bacon asked this witch to hand over the scroll. She hopes for the quick implementation of the agreement. The guy will live up to all expectations. 2 hours later, the main character finds out the names of those players who have the best results. He asks to be brought here. The 3 goblins go to this place. The red-haired one believes that this is a hidden mission, possibly related to Pay Manaroth. Their mission is to use the forces to distract Pay Manaroth. They can exchange all the magic stones they receive. Everything turned out just as these goblins intended. They find this mission exciting and want to finally take part. After this, the goblins were teleported to another place. The main character, with an insidious smile, realizes that everything is going according to plan. He understands that Professor Bacon is the dean of the academy and is very rich. He hopes that they will earn a lot of stones. Meanwhile, the goblins teleport to Professor Bacon. She notices this and is very glad to meet them because she has been waiting for a long time. She tells them that they are goblins chosen by Sherlock and asks if they are strong enough. They are confident in their abilities and want money. The girl caresses one of the goblins and says that magic stones are not a problem. The only thing is that they will be difficult to carry away. The goblin is confident that they will be able to carry away the stones. This answer made the professor very happy, after which she changed clothes. She shows them very suspicious objects and invites them to have fun tonight. The goblins were embarrassed, but they realized that they wouldn't feel pain anyway, but they could still get rich. She says that she will play for 100 magic stones. The goblin is satisfied with this, and he asks her to come over. The girl hit him with a whip. The goblin understands that the time has come to test his acting abilities because they pay well here. The rest of the goblins, looking like boys from magazine covers, show their tasty spots and ask to hit them quickly. The goblins fight together for the right to get the first blow from the professor. The girl is surprised that Sherlock raised them to be masochists. The next day in the dungeon, the demon lord tells the witches to come back already. They understand him. After his words, the main character watches as these girls begin to teleport from this place through the portal. Immediately after them, the goblins teleported here. They really liked this task. It would also help them get rich. Sherlock is interested in their catch. One of the goblins earned 40,000 stones, another 35,000, and the third earned 25,000. The guy praises them for the work they have done. After the update, he will give them copper coins and Simba will improve their equipment. After the dialogue, joyful goblins begin to run away from this place. They consider Sherlock good and love him. After the goblins have left, Sherlock turns to Professor Bacon and asks her if she is happy with the goblins. She says that Sherlock is a master and has trained them well. Now that the portal is ready, they can start assessing the others. The guy thinks he can start right now, but he has a request, and if she agrees, the goblins will work harder. The girl learns the guy's request. If during the battle any goblin wins, then the things that fell from the skeleton will remain with him. Bacon agreed to this, especially since the armor and weapons will not be particularly expensive. The guy is actually doing them a great service. Then they should prepare, because the test will begin tomorrow. The guy extended his hand to this girl. Professor Bacon confidently extended her hand in response, and they shook hands, wishing them the same successful cooperation. Sherlock asks Blue to follow him, because he still needs to compile an update log and earn a lot of pebbles. Blue happily flies up to the main character, and with a wide smile on his face tells him that he understands what needs to be done. There are still 10 minutes before the players go online. Sherlock already misses them. Meanwhile, Blue sees that Simba and Cindy are back. They both stood in front of the guy and greeted him. Sherlock looks at them in bewilderment because they returned too early. They had nothing to do, so they came early. The guy says that the players will be back soon and they will be needed. Simba believes that the Lord has come up with a new entertainment for the goblins. He is glad because he is already completely tired of them. 10 minutes later, Simba is already working, enjoying a wonderful day without goblins who keep asking different questions. And then, much to the misfortune of the blacksmith, another nerd appears who, with a smile on his face, asks him about the mission. A bunch of goblins have gathered in the forge. They are glad that they are finally back because they missed Simba. They are looking around right now. The 3 goblins who took part in the secret mission decide to find out what exactly they were doing. They are also interested in their reward. In the meantime, Blue has posted the update log for version 0.03. After publication, he asks players to familiarize themselves with it. The goblins, as usual, are happy about the update. They will finally be able to knock out new equipment. They are already making plans for the future. Those who have not sufficiently developed the skill must form a squad and go kill spiders. You need to get to the 2nd level. And then the red-haired goblin gathered his brothers in a circle and offered to form a team of 5. Of course they don't mind. The players are so inspired that they will soon fill the entire dungeon, which will also help them earn more money. We see the girls in the jacuzzi waiting for the new final test. They are confident that they will defeat the goblins. It is also strange that the rules state that goblins can return their equipment, but it is still better not to use expensive weapons. We see a girl who is called an excellent student, Katarina. She understands that Bacon was not joking when she said that the goblins would participate. Perhaps the academy has decided to use goblins to test graduates. This seems like an opportunity that Katarina cannot miss. She got dressed and tells everyone that those who have finished the water procedures should start getting ready, because there will be a test soon. If Professor Bacon uses goblins unfairly, then she will not leave it like that. He will try to record everything. She learns from someone that the training ground is already ready, which means that the test can begin. We see some kind of arena, to which apparently someone is starting to teleport. Now we will see them. These turned out to be armed goblins. They are now going to grab everything they can take with them. The atmosphere here is creepy. Katarina sees that there is nothing special about these goblins, except for some strange symbols on their heads. Meanwhile, these goblins are collecting everything that they can get their hands on. They are already wondering how much it can be sold for. Katarina continues to observe the actions of these goblins. It all seems very strange to her. She cannot understand what they are doing. Another girl tells her that they just want to take all the things for themselves. She thinks that these goblins are too self-confident. She asks candidates under different numbers to start the test. She is sure that 2 witches will definitely defeat 5 goblins. As the goblins continue to collect resources, thinking they are playing Minecraft, a bunch of skeletons appear behind them. After the skeleton warriors appeared in this arena near the goblins, Katarina orders them to finish off these greedy goblins. She understands that candidates numbered 98562 and 78566 are quite experienced. They have been waiting for this day, wondering if they will be able to complete their training. The goblins are going to act according to the original plan. First, they need to kill as many as they can. Next, we see the goblins begin to run away from a bunch of skeletons who are about to finish them off. But this all turned out to be their brilliant plan. They surrounded one of the skeletons on both sides, after which they were going to strike. It can be seen how these two, realizing that everything is going according to their plan, decide to attack the skeleton from both sides, while he stands still. One of the goblins overtook this skeleton, and with one confident swing of his sword simply cut off his bony leg. The second, meanwhile, decided to finish off this skeleton. He jumped on his back, after which he plunged his sword straight into his head. After a couple of seconds, these two goblins dealt with the skeleton. Making sure that it was dead, they decide to move on. A minute later, we see those same two goblins standing near a pile of bones and are about to continue because their plan is working. Suddenly we hear a grinding sound. Two weapons collided, the sword of one of the goblins and the axe of some unfortunate enemy. It was Arthur and some kind of skeleton. They entered into battle with each other. Arthur, meanwhile, considers these enemies to be very weak. During the battle, the nimble and dexterous goblin made a jump and apparently wants to get around this skeleton from behind. After his jump, he delivers a powerful blow. These skeletons do not seem very smart to him. The rest of the goblins listen to him and do not want to waste any more time. They want to finish them all off for the Eternal Kingdom. Katarina sees their strength and does not believe that they are really goblins. She is already very interested in who trained them. The rest of the witches also do not believe at all that the goblins in their time are so strong. Then it is not surprising that they were sent here. 2 hours later, the fourth stage arrives. One of the powerful undead arrives, which the goblins must fight. They already have their own tactics. One distracts and the other, meanwhile, aims at the legs. They will definitely be able to survive. We see how Arthur distracts these undead. He put a shield in front of him, which this stupid undead steps on. After this, the huge monster pushed the goblin back, but everything went according to plan. The undead were distracted and another goblin struck. The monster, of course, didn't like this. She immediately turned her attention to the red-haired goblin. Arthur quickly recovered from the blow he received and runs back to the monster to show him who the real boss of the rocking chair is. A tired green guy lies on the ground and asks the goblin Sylvanas to go first, because this gamer is called by his mother to eat. The girls are surprised by the goblin's huge belly. They are interested in how his mother allows him to eat. These goblins are not all right. 5 minutes later, we see how the undead, which previously seemed like a formidable opponent, has now fallen to the ground with a roar. Sylvanas sees this and is glad that he is finally killed. This dungeon is too difficult and they have been playing for over 2 hours. The red-haired man asks to help him collect rewards from the monster. Arthur picked up a huge knife and wants to sell it. These goblins begin to collect various resources around. They extract them with the help of tools and also carry their fallen comrades. Katarina sees this and understands that it's all over, and she won't be able to graduate from the academy this year. These goblins are real psychos. She tells the strong witches that the final exam is over, and the result will be in 3 days. Later, she continues to look at the ball with which she was tracking the goblins. She does not understand why the goblins are so strong. We see a group of goblins who are now very happy. They are carrying loot on their shoulders and are about to return to the dungeon. You can see the events taking place in the dungeon. Ordinary goblins have gathered in the lobby and see someone teleporting to them. It turned out to be the same group that was doing their job. Everyone is surprised that they were able to win, and it looks like the dungeon is difficult. Everyone turned their attention to Sylvanas, who carried the body of her comrade on her shoulders all the way. She asked to call Sherlock. The goblins listen to her and begin to scream at the top of their voices, trying to call Sherlock because he must come and resurrect them. He came and praised everyone for their work, then asks Blue to help look around. He also understands that the materials obtained are good. He wonders if the trophies can be converted into new equipment and sold, but it is better not to do this, otherwise there will be a gap between the players. To prevent this from happening, you need to limit the things that can be taken out of the dungeon and improve your equipment. The guy tells the goblins that they should take the equipment to Simba for improvement. The rest of the teams should prepare. He understands that 4 groups are already 2,000 stones. After such a long period of inactivity, he can finally earn the first pot of gold. And then a letter came to the guy. Perhaps it was from his beloved. Sherlock does not believe that such people exist anywhere. In the next chapter, the guy understands that this is a letter from a succubus and this is progress, Blue does not understand what kind of progress we are talking about. Sherlock recalls how they received the key to the ancient ruins at a time when they first had players. He believes that now their location has practically been discovered, and this may already mean something. Sherlock says it was handed over to the Chamber of Commerce. They should go and meet them. They came to Winterfall and met a certain beast. This character invited Sherlock here, since he is a partner by agreement. Sherlock's people are busy, so he doesn't have the opportunity to take part in the search. As they agreed, 3,000 stones are needed. The beast agrees to hire people for the search. He is interested in how Sherlock will distribute the rewards. Sherlock decides to find out the opinion of this expert. He wonders how long it will take to search. It turns out that at least a month. They should hurry up with the test. Blue thinks that the second stage can begin with the completion of the excavation. Blue will make a new monetary system, but it is necessary to find an assistant who has the power of resurrection, and an announcement is also needed. The Goblins saw the new ad and realized that Sherlock was going to spend a lot of money, because the training would be free. Katerina has a lot of questions for these goblins. She wants to decipher the strange symbols on their heads, and she also wants to know about the dungeon. The witch tells Katerina that they took the cheat sheet from one of the candidates and invites her to take a look. She agrees. She reads this cheat sheet and believes that these students are well aware of what is happening. They even notice that goblins are not easy. Meanwhile, we see the goblins teleporting into the arena, ready to kick some monster's ass. The girls understand that this is the end, because the goblins have come. But the yellow-haired one has a secret technique against them. Katerina calls her friend strong enough because skeleton magicians are a different level of monsters. They are stronger. She wondered if skeleton mages were allowed in the exam, but no one said they weren't, so it was possible. Arthur believes that the person leaking information about the test will definitely get screwed, because they will think that they are attacking their legs. Sylvanas asks you to stop gossiping. She has a secret weapon. First, you just need to get rid of your enemies. We see a group of goblins who deal with a bunch of skeletons without any problems. It comes to them very easily. Then they see something strange and think it's a new boss. They see a staff and it already seems to them that it's a magician. We see the monsters themselves. On the left is a lover of a dose of steroids, and on the right is a Dota player with a staff. They look quite menacing. The goblin with a beautiful hair raised his weapon and put up a shield, planning to go first and check these mobs. He decided to jump directly on the skeleton boss alone to find out what he was even capable of. But it turned out that this skeleton struck the goblin with lightning, causing his shield to crack, and the goblin itself flew to the side. The others saw the power of this mob. It was very cruel and unexpected. They are wondering what they should do next. The girls took notice of this. Katerina thinks her friend is very cool, and the yellow-haired one thinks that victory is guaranteed for them. Meanwhile, Sylvanas realizes that the time has come for her secret weapon. She is now full of confidence and believes that it will work. She decides to throw some strange lumps directly towards her enemies. Apparently, something is about to happen. The girls noticed her actions and did not understand what she was doing, and for some reason the skeleton magician did not attack. We see the bosses themselves, who are simply shocked by the actions of the goblin girl. They just stand still and do nothing. Meanwhile, Sylvanas begins to pull 5 arrows at once, which she had previously set on fire and is now about to fire. We see how these arrows fly straight into those same balls. The skeleton magician looks very scared and does not know what to do. There was a strong explosion. Sylvanas, like the main action hero, pompously stood with her back to him and didn't even turn around. The goblins with the witch girls watched this performance. Deep shock was visible on their faces. No one expected such a turn. Next, we see how a satisfied Sylvanas stood with her feet right on the bodies of the killed enemies. She laughs because they literally exploded. The goblins didn't know that this girl was so cool. She now tells them that they can call her the Dark Queen. Arthur doesn't want to waste time on empty talk and arguments. He suggests quickly collecting all the equipment from the bodies. While the others were collecting resources, Sylvanas noticed one of the balls which for some reason did not explode. The red-haired man noticed the girl's strong curiosity. He was very scared, so he asked her not to touch this thing. After she touched this object, a very strong explosion occurred, as if a Tsar bomb had exploded there, and I wonder what happened to the goblins. Meanwhile, the witch girls are watching what is happening through their blue ball. Of course they saw this explosion. They are a little perplexed and wonder if they really were able to defeat these goblins, or if it seems to them. Meanwhile, the goblins return to the dungeon. Everyone already understands that they have died, which means failure. One of the goblins is angry with Sylvanas, because he didn't think that they would die because of their ally. He couldn't do anything about it. The goblins are wondering why everyone came back. They are wondering what happened to the bomb and do not want all their efforts to be in vain. Arthur answered the question instead of the girl. He says that the bomb worked, but by mistake they blew themselves up too. We see a goblin named Ma Shenli. Apparently he was actually able to make a bomb for the dungeon. Everyone thinks he's very cool. Sherlock and Blue see this. Blue believes that Professor Bacon will be against this and asks him to say this with caution. The problem is that players want to blow up the server. Their plans can really be dangerous for the whole world. However, this will not work. It will not be possible to allow this guy to carry out his sinister plan, because it will end badly. The two hit the road. The main character is determined and understands that they urgently need to fix everything. Meanwhile, Katerina wants to leave the academy. According to her, she is happy with everything here, but she has already made her decision. In this case, the professor says that she will have to find someone else to take the final test. Catherine thanks her. Apparently, Bacon is going to go to the Eternal Kingdom, because she really wants to find out what their secret is. In the next chapter, the guy asks how many more players they need for the second test. He finds out that 2,000 are planned. Sherlock is not happy about this because he is already tired of these 100, and there are another 2,000 on the way. He needs helpers. While this demon lord was sitting and whining about how difficult it was for him, he received a letter with a heart. It seems to him that even at the Undead Academy, they noticed that these are not ordinary goblins. This is a letter from a strong master. He thinks that he doesn't want to come to them because she is interested in what is going on here. He will allow her to satisfy her curiosity. The master of this academy came to them. She hopes for cooperation. The guy has already heard about her and knows that she is very good, but he does not want to hire her. Blue still doesn't understand what's wrong, because Sherlock just recently wanted assistance. Sherlock believes that Blue takes everything to heart. Katerina says that the guy inattentively examined her resume. According to her, she can do a lot, so she should be hired. Sherlock considers her more of a practitioner. He also has doubts about devotion to the Eternal Kingdom. She is at a loss. The guy is going to show her something. Although goblins are weak, they have humanity and hard work, so they are very loyal. Next, we see how the main character turns away from the girl and begins to go his own way. Apparently, he wants to show her something. Although goblins are not as educated, they do not study like witches for 50 years, but they work very hard. They are fearless. Even very serious injuries cannot stop them. They always go to the end to complete the mission. If they faint from fatigue, they will continue to work after waking up. This makes them very good individuals. Now, Sherlock is interested in her opinion about these unique goblins. He asks if she wants to join. It turns out that she does. In this case, they are going to sign a contract. He asks her to read carefully, because their terms are too specific. 5 minutes later, the contract was signed. Blue will show the girl her place of work, but first the guy himself will show her something. The main character also did not expect to see an outstanding student of the academy here. He believes that this is a big surprise for him. Meanwhile, the goblins are looking for Lord Sherlock to heal them. They also want to meet the new girl. The new worker herself decided to go out to these goblins. She greets them and introduces herself. The goblins are surprised. As always, they get visual pleasure from the girl's appearance. These gamers see such beauty only on the internet. They should touch the grass in the yard. Each of the goblins asks to study it because he really likes it. Everyone wants that they chose him. Meanwhile, huge beetles are teleporting here. Soon we will have to find out exactly what they are here for. The goblins see them and already want to ride them. A new character was added, and the beetles also came. They won the lottery. They have ridden the beetle. The main thing for them is to kill as many monsters as possible. They believe that after defeating the enemies, a new map will open. Katerina looks at all this, although she does not understand what it is about, but she feels how powerful this dungeon is. 10 days later, we see the goblins who brought Sherlock an egg that can be exchanged for reputation and equipment. Sherlock himself does not understand what these eggs are for, but then he learns that these eggs are useful and will be useful to them in large quantities. They will be able to open more races with them for a future test. This is necessary so that there are not only goblins in the dungeon. Sherlock curiously asks if current players will be able to change the old race to a new one. It turns out they can, but for money. This really sounds interesting to Sherlock. Now he is looking forward to the second test a little more, even more than his birthday. The guy asks the goblins to take the eggs to the warehouse, and they will receive a reward for them. The goblins understand that their work was not in vain. A whole month has passed. The events take place on the 85th floor of the ruins, and we see some pumped-up creatures mining something. They turn to Lord Sherlock and say that their search has encountered some problems. Sherlock wonders what happened. The gates of the ruins are sealed with powerful runes, which means there is something valuable inside, but opening it will be costly. Then you will have to freeze the search for a while. The creatures decide in this case to go about their business. While the pumped-up creatures are leaving this place, the main character turned his attention to something unusual. He'll have to check it out. He decides to put his hand directly to the gate, intending to check something, and apparently something happens. Something unusual begins to happen right in front of Sherlock. Blue energy is visible in front of him. Apparently the door is opening. Sherlock was able to open the door, but he doesn't want those creatures to know about it because he doesn't want to share resources. This guy is a real devil. Next, This demon lord decides to make a teleport inside the gate so that the players can enter inside. He wants players to be able to secretly explore everything there, and then they can still develop the dungeon. Sherlock wants Katerina to help the players a little in solving the traps. Katerina herself is not happy and pretends to be grateful. In this case, they decide to return to the teleporter and then make a separate one for the players. They will need to create a cutscene. Players see something strange and don't understand what it is. Perhaps it's a teleportation circle, which means a new map will appear. The main character finds it strange that a magical demonic circle has appeared here. He wonders what it means. Sherlock decides not to waste too much time and, with the help of his powers, is going to find out what this secret is hidden behind. He sees a lot of undead in front of him. He is scared. Sherlock believes that some demon was able to get to the relic. Meanwhile, the next demon boss laughs at the fact that the remains of human demons are somewhere. This is exciting for him. Sherlock decides to close the gap through which he watched those undead. Apparently, he will have to turn to his servants. He says that the demons entered the ruins of their ancestors. They cannot be allowed to get it all. The time has come to defend their home. They are serious and believe that this is a new stage. They intend to finish off the Abyss Demon and are confident that they can win. Blue tells Lord Sherlock that his game is getting better and better, but he needs to prepare for an update and release the task. Blue posted information about the new task. The Goblins saw the information on the bone backpack and realized that it was 3 times larger than the previous fabric bag, and it was twice as expensive. So it was time to go get the materials. Katerina does not understand why these goblins are so obsessed with useless coins and materials. Cindy says that she herself does not know. But her brother Simba thinks that they have simply gone crazy. Katerina listened carefully to her friend Cindy, after which, with a smile on her face, she realized that the secrets of the Eternal Kingdom are really deep. Apparently, this is very interesting for her. She wants to study them. 3 days later, we see the goblins who have completed the preliminary task, and all now have bone backpacks. Now they are ready to go to the ruins. Sherlock says that Katerina will be with them on this task. Meanwhile, the girl is already approaching them and asks all the goblin warriors to stand in the magic circle because they have a mission to save treasures from their ancestors, and this is a big responsibility. We can now watch how Katerina, along with armed goblins, set off on their important mission. Using a teleport, they will go to the right place. As they prepare to set out, the goblins are overjoyed that the event has finally begun. So it's time for the Abyss Demons to be ready as the goblins are coming for their bony asses. In the next chapter, we see how the goblins, together with Katerina, arrived at a new place. The goblins look around and are very surprised that this place is quite huge. They also see a bunch of passages in front of them. They don't understand why this place is so suspiciously quiet, because there seem to be monsters here, but they are nowhere to be seen. They should look around to see if they can exchange some things for coins. If they can't exchange them, then they can remake them. But now they need to rush to find as many as possible. Sherlock believes that the entrance to the ruins is a complex labyrinth with traps. He wonders whether the goblins will get through them in a short time. Blue is sure that there is no need to worry, because over the entire time they have definitely become stronger. The main character believes that their constant search for all sorts of junk significantly affects the overall progress. Blue should inform the headman so that they examine everything as soon as possible, because this is important. Meanwhile, the goblins found a bunch of junk around and brought it to Lady Katerina so that she could estimate the value of these things. They ask her opinion about various things, and Katerina herself looks dissatisfied. The red-haired goblin believes that they can cope with the labyrinth very easily. The main thing for them now is to throw off everyone's things and get ready for the new map, because they have been waiting for this long enough. Katerina sees that these green, muscular, handsome men are starting to undress. She does not understand why they are doing this. Assuming that this is some kind of act, she hopes that this is not what she is thinking about. Ma Shenli asks the others not to forget to remember the path absolutely exactly. He asks them to write about it on the form, and he will draw a map. The goblins ask him not to worry because they will take care of everything. Now the girl understood. They undressed so as not to lose the equipment that Sherlock gave them. Such devotion is very touching. It is not surprising that Sherlock is proud of them. It looks like she will have to work hard to help the Lord. Katerina decides to use her magic wand, and with serious intentions, she understands that she needs to look around, in case she can use something from here so that it is useful. After some time, the girl noticed 2 skeletons. She believes that she can use them for her own purposes, so these bony ones can be useful to her. The girl didn't even attack them. She just stopped in place and began to read some spells in a calm voice, which apparently would affect their mind if they had one, of course. The spells of this witch influence these undead. It seems that they can no longer control themselves, but are only under the power of the girl. Now she decides what they will do now. After 10 minutes, she realizes that it will take more time, because this labyrinth is more complicated than she thought, and the traps are very scary. However, she is a master of her craft. Such are very rare, and she will do her job. Meanwhile, Xiongmao sees two skeletons running near him. He noticed that they did not even dare to attack him. He does not understand what they want and what they are doing now. These skeletons continued to run forward without paying attention to anything. Later, they stumbled upon the first trap, after which the goblin realized that they were helping them study this map so that they would not harm themselves. However, the goblin himself cannot believe this. He is now in complete shock and believes that he has thought too much, and this is something from the science fiction section, even though he saw everything with his own eyes. 4 hours later, we see a bunch of goblins who have found 10 wrong exits. This is real power. They find out that the forum is updated quite quickly, and there is already information about the maze to look at. Katarina sees that these goblins have found 10 wrong exits. Besides, she can't figure out what forum they're talking about. The bad thing is that Sherlock won't allow her to ask even more questions. 8 hours later, the goblins in shorts are still wandering around. They are going to pick up the equipment because they have already approached the exit from the labyrinth. They should also go to the forum later to study this strange map.
One of the goblins asks not to touch the treasure because it is a trap. There is also a third part of the labyrinth in which skeletons run past the players, and it is possible that there is a bug. But there is also no point in being afraid of them.
Katarina is surprised that these goblins found a way out with literally bare asses. She thought that this was impossible. She also wants to check everything and monitor them through the skeletons. Meanwhile, the goblins continue to walk through the labyrinth to the exit, already in their equipment, and right behind them are two skeletons, which apparently were sent here by Katarina to follow them. The goblins turn around and don't understand why these skeletons are following them. Perhaps this is a glitch, but you shouldn't attack them, because at any moment a trap can be activated and everything will end badly for everyone. One of the goblins does not understand that the others went through these traps. It is obvious that their main task was not to find a way out, but to explore the labyrinth for the forum, and this really brought them together a lot. It is possible that this is Sherlock's secret. He is able to unite their consciousness and act together, just like in a hive. But she has not yet thought about whether it is even possible to do this. To begin with, they all want to set up a camp to stop and rest. They understand that the game is becoming more and more difficult, and the reward is not so simple. They need to figure it out first. The goblin on the left cannot understand why the elder is still not with them, but it is possible that she was sitting somewhere. Without her, they feel very helpless and want to return to her. Meanwhile, Katarina sits and is sad. She believes that she has no talents at all. She now considers herself useless to these goblins, and to Sherlock himself too. This is the reason for her sadness. The goblins are happy that they found the way. There are a lot of interesting things in the ruins. She should listen to this. The eyes of these goblins are burning. They are already developing a plan and selecting equipment. 3 days later, Sherlock asks Blue if the players managed to find anything useful. Blue says that they managed to find a lot of magic items, but it seems that they did not immediately exchange them. They may think that trading would be a disadvantage in this situation. The blue guy would just have to wait until they realized they should trade. But the problem is that they found the dungeon core and don't want to give it up. After Blue's words, Sherlock lost his temper. He doesn't believe that they found the core of the dungeon and clarifies this with his friend. He confirms his words and Sherlock realizes that he didn't hear it at all. He is also glad that his cuties helped him get 20 million magic stones. You can find a lot in the ruins. Very often you come across something valuable there, and this makes the guy happy. Meanwhile, we are shown goblins who have found a broken rare breastplate and shoulder pad. They understand that this is valuable armor, and perhaps a completely new character will soon appear in this wonderful game. These things will definitely be useful to them in the future, but while they don't really know how to use them, these goods can be exchanged for money and reputation. But you should hope that Lord Sherlock will be interested in them. Meanwhile, fortunately for all these goblins, our main character descends from heaven before them. Like a god, the goblins are already impatient, and they really want to ask him a couple of questions about different points. Continuing to look at Lord Sherlock, they began to make various guesses. Some thought that a new plot was starting. They were wondering who exactly started it, and everyone looked very surprised. The main character came here for the dungeon core. He saw it in the hands of one of the goblins and wants to take it for himself. Before that, of course, he did not forget to praise the goblin who found this thing. Red-haired thinks that it was he who launched the new plot. Sherlock tells this goblin that this is a real achievement. Since he was able to find this core, the Eternal Kingdom will always remember his name and merits. The red-haired goblin was wondering how much this thing would cost, but Sherlock had completely different intentions. Using his powers, he took this ball and thanked this great warrior. He even decided not to carefully put this goblin back in place. He only turned off his telekinesis while he was in flight, from which the goblin simply fell face down on the floor. Sherlock now says goodbye to this great warrior. Now everyone is laughing at the red-haired goblin Coetzee. He is lying on the ground, and now he has begun to hate Mr. Sherlock. Now he considers him bad. Some support him and also consider the guy ruthless. After Sherlock mercilessly took the ball from the poor goblin, he turned to Blue and asked if he could now make a gain and release an update. Sherlock is confident in his abilities and says that he has been waiting for this for a long time. Next, we see how Blue suddenly began to suck the ball right into himself, even though this ball was the size of himself, after which something unusual began to happen. Blue energy was emitted from it. After that, he turns to Lord Sherlock and tells him that he has been successfully modernized, so now they can begin the second testing, because with such an improvement, the core will definitely bring out the same. The main character is happy about this. He will go and create an announcement on the official website. He also tells Blue to tell the others to log out of the system because it's time to make an update. After some time, the players noticed a notification that said that the Eternal Kingdom dungeon would be switched off for updates in 30 minutes. Everyone was very happy, because they understood that the second testing would begin. Half an hour later, Katerina turns to Sherlock, asking where all the goblins suddenly disappeared. He says that they are not online. He doesn't even want to explain what's going on, because she still won't understand, and over time she'll get involved herself. The girl even forgot about one of the points of the agreement that she signed earlier. She wants to ask Lord Sherlock one more question, but apparently this guy simply interrupted her. He says that he understands that she has a lot of questions, but she shouldn't ask them. It's better for students to study and find out everything on their own. Then they won't be scared by failures and societal pressure. The demon GigaChad also understands that more people will soon arrive, which means that it's time to hire more assistants. It seems to him that his dungeon will soon rise greatly, and this is very healthy, because the efforts are not in vain. Players saw another notification that the second testing in the game has already begun. They want to register as soon as possible, because they have been waiting for this moment for a very long time, and are not going to miss it. In the next chapter, the guy asks Blue to look at the system notification, wanting to know his opinion on it. Blue thinks it's good, but they still need to discuss the details regarding opening gold chests and exploring maps. After a whole day, they now look at the computer monitor and realize that the players are very energetic. In total, 2.5 million applications were submitted. Can they really look through all this together? The main character looks at different applications. They are thrown by people of different genders, with different ages, and for various very strange reasons. The main character is sure that he will be able to look through all the applications, because he is a demon of the highest level. Blue wonders if Sherlock has enough money, because with so many people, the expenses will be quite significant. The guy is not worried because he sold things stolen from the ruins, so there will be no problems. However, Blue doesn't like to hear this. Sherlock in response asks him not to worry, because new players will explore the territory and help earn more money, and he also made it so that their reputation falls if they work poorly. Blue also learned that his reputation now has a negative value. He now believes that Lord Sherlock is really a cruel demon. The guy sees no other way out, because he hired assistants and bought a lot of eggs. An hour later, the satisfied main character has already finished selecting participants for the second test. He asks to check the Blue forum, because he is interested in knowing what the players are writing now. And Blue, in turn, is dissatisfied. Checking the forum, they realize that the new players have a plan. The main character, along with the Blue Core, is very interested in what they are going to do. It all looks very interesting. Blue understands that the first test players are worried about bugs in the game and that it will crash. Sherlock thinks that this is great because he received 100 free assistants. Blue says that the first 100 are very strong compared to other players, so they need to give something to the newcomers. But Sherlock doesn't have money for equipment, so he wants to give them 3,000 reputation and the same amount of silver coins. The guy understands that in this case, he won't have to waste magic stones, and Blue is once again convinced that Lord Sherlock is truly a ruthless demon lord. He is simply shocked by him. Sherlock needs to conduct training for new employees, and he will wait for the start of new testing. Blue only supports him in this. He believes that this Sigma will succeed. The next day, we see how new players have appeared in the dungeon. They look around and realize that everything around is very realistic. Not only the effects, but also the body itself. They already want to try a lot. One goblin hit another to see if he would feel pain. It turned out that the blow really hurt. This thing even simulates pain 100%, and this is really cool in their opinion. Meanwhile, Sherlock doesn't understand why there are only goblins and no banshees, and the newcomers themselves continue to look around, because they are all very interested in this and want to study everything. The main character continues to watch what is happening from above. At first glance, he sees that everyone is in high spirits and is well prepared for the second test in the Eternal Kingdom dungeon. The goblins finally saw Lord Sherlock and consider him a real handsome man. The girls already want to take him as their husband. Absolutely everyone wants to be next to this cool and handsome demon. Sherlock, turning to his humble servants, asks them to swear allegiance to him, and he, as the great lord of demons, will give them his mercy and generous gifts as a reward. The guy expects their consent. The goblins jumped on this guy and ask him to smile for beautiful photos on Instagram. They also feel his beautiful muscles, and absolutely everyone wants to take a photo for memory next to this model. The player wondered if this game had online chat or auto search on the go. He was also interested in learning about the missions and about the big map. The girl next to him thought that this guy had never heard of this game. The guy, after viewing the system notification, turns to the goblin girl and asks her how they can communicate at all if there is no online chat. Apparently everything seems strange to him. Meanwhile, the goblin with a pigtail does not understand why everyone is standing. He already wants to start working and invites everyone to go carry bricks. But others are wondering where the forge is and where to carry the bricks. This goblin understands that these players did not look at the guide at all. It should have been looked at after all. There is a guide from the first players. They posted it for newbies, so it should have been looked at before starting the game. This blue-haired guy was also advised not to leave the network, because later even more people would come and they would simply trample him. The guy was a little shocked. He didn't think that the game would not be interrupted when turning off. The goblin with a pigtail, who is actually a guy, believes that it is better to protect himself. This is the first of its kind in a virtual reality game. Even the pain is 100% similar to the real thing. Meanwhile, someone teleports into the dungeon. The newcomers pay attention to this and see that these are new players. They are all surprised at how powerful and pumped they all are. They want to become the same. Their equipment made the newcomers salivate. They really look perfect. They recognize the goblin Arthur among the group. They think that he looks his best. No one thought that goblins could be so beautiful. Meanwhile, one of the armed goblins did not like all this noise. He, as one of the oldest goblins in this place, swung his sword and ordered all the curious newcomers to be silent. They understood this and now
Ask each other to shut up because the elite player right now wants to tell them something. They are all already tired of this noise because of it they cannot hear at all what they want to say.
The elite goblin tells everyone that they will teach them the basics for one day. He also tells those players who would like to study here for free to raise their hands. Of course, absolutely everyone raised their hands because they have no money. Arthur took off his helmet so that now everyone could see his serious and handsome face. Looking at this crowd, he asks them all to start following him, because he understood their intentions and what they want. Meanwhile, Moros is watching this whole performance. He remembers that Lord Sherlock says that new goblins are joining, but there is a whole army of them here, if all this, of course, can be described that way. Arthur asks the newcomers to remember this place. It is called the training ground, so now they move on. The newcomers also notice the Moros troll. It seems to them that he is some kind of skinny goblin or that Arthur is just very big. After some time, the newcomers turned their attention to the blacksmith Simba, but he was told that there was no point in approaching Simba unless they planned to improve the weapons they had with them. Goblins are also told that they must obey orders and should not die, and they will still feel pain. But one brave goblin says that he is not afraid of pain, but he wonders what it would be like to die. The armed goblin listened to this fool and decided to fulfill the request of this curious newcomer. He simply took his sword and silently cut off his head, thereby showing what it was like to die. After that, this guy points to the head of that loser and, looking at the headman, asks her to resurrect him because he already got what he wanted, and the headman looks dissatisfied and is convinced that this dungeon is amazing. Meanwhile, we see the events that are happening right in the kitchen. Cindy remembers the moment when the past goblins wanted to play with her, and if now the newcomers decide to repeat their actions, then they will come to an end. As expected, the goblins came to the kitchen and see that this carpenter girl is actually very good. They would already like to die at her hands, and Cindy looks like she is about to lose her temper. Meanwhile, 4 armed characters say that this dungeon is a real madhouse. It's not for nothing that Sherlock came up with so many rules. It's also the first time they've seen such strange goblins. The girl tells the others that these must be 4 newcomers, and apparently they want to strengthen their combat training. The others look interested and want to hear more about it. 2 goblins, looking at Sylvanas, remember that she is known for being an enemy to her team, even before that she killed her own comrades, and they say that they have long admired her because of this. Meanwhile, we see the main character together with Blue. These two are standing right by the window and watching from above what is happening in this dungeon. They are wondering how the newcomers to this wonderful game are doing. Blue, meanwhile, does not understand why Sherlock is so calm. In response, Sherlock tells him that there is no need to worry at all, because absolutely all the goblins in the dungeon are now having fun, and this cannot but rejoice. Then the evil guy flies forward, because it seemed to him that someone encroached on his hoe, which was earned through hard work. This is absolutely unacceptable, and the one who did this must be punished. Blue noticed the unusual reaction of the main character. He stayed in the tower and once again became convinced that this great gentleman was absolutely ruthless. After he reaches his goal, Sherlock begins to hit the poor goblin with lightning, and so everyone knows, he says that anyone who wants to destroy public property will accept a similar punishment. Blue, turning to Sherlock, tells him that he punishes his servants too harshly, but does not say what they should do. This could lead to a loss of interest. But the guy asks not to worry, because he has a plan. The main character decided right now to bring his brilliant plan to life. He began to scatter leaflets around the area, and apparently is going to arrange gladiator fights between the players, because this will help them make money. His idea is to let players compete against each other. He really wants to build a pay arena and create a winner's table. He hopes that players will appreciate his idea. In this case, it doesn't really matter who dies, because one will definitely survive and help the guy earn money. He understands that his plan has some advantages and no disadvantages at all. There are no bosses in the dungeon, so it would be better to pit the goblins against each other. After training, you can release them into the arena. It will be profitable. Blue was convinced that the guy is very wise and experienced in building a game, and now he feels guilty. We can observe the expression on Blue's face. From it, we can say that he is now very serious, and turning to Lord Sherlock, says that they should make their PvP arena start working. Sherlock likes the mood of his friend, but he also says that this is not only PvP, there are more than 2,000 players, so it will be possible to expand the functions to make it more interesting. The main character understands that it is also possible to make PvE content. Thanks to this, they will be able to obtain various resources, become stronger by improving their equipment, and participate in more difficult battles. Players will need to create alliances and develop in order to become the strongest team. This is only a plus because the players will have the motivation to be together and work together all the time. There will be other features as well, but they will need to shut down the server again for a while to prepare for a completely new chapter in this game of theirs. A storm is coming, and absolutely all players will have to like the update. As a storyteller, I believe that Manhwa is quite interesting for many, and especially for gamers, because it often shows various situations that can happen in our country, for example, during online games. Situations can be real or simply funny. It also seems to me that the main character, named Sherlock, is very brilliant, because he attracted people from another world to his dungeon. For them, it seems that they are just playing a regular game, but the game is quite realistic and is very addictive while they are just play. They thereby help Sherlock improve his dungeon and, one might say, make him richer. The main character is actually very lucky to find such a precious core as Blue. It helps him in the implementation of his brilliant plans and from the cheapest dungeon. They make a place that absolutely everyone admires when they see it. Sherlock is constantly working to keep the players interested in his game. He gives them various quests, story missions, etc. He also works to make them stronger, conducting various trainings for them, with the help of a troll trainer named Drizzling. By the way, speaking of assistants, the main character is constantly trying to find various workers in his dungeon so that it would be useful for himself and for the goblins too. For example, the beautiful carpenter Cindy, whom absolutely all the goblins in the dungeon want, but she is a fighting woman and herself will not give offense. Or there is also a Simba blacksmith who is engaged in improving equipment for players, but they like to infuriate him with their questions.